Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the year the sun disappeared, literally vanished. Gone. No sunrise, no golden hour selfies, no sunglasses needed. Just 1 minute it's Tuesday morning and the next, boom. Darkness like you've never known. The kind that sinks into your bones and never really leaves. So yeah, you probably won't survive this one, but hey, at least you'll know how it all went down, right? So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It keeps the lights on, literally in this case. Also tell me where you're watching from tonight, and what time it is there. Are you somewhere bright and buzzing or deep in your own version of the dark? Either way, I want to know. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing at a crosswalk, probably holding a lukewarm coffee, earbuds in, trying to ignore the emails already stacking up on your phone. It's 10:16 a.m. Precisely. You know this because the digital clock on the corner bank is blinking at you, bright and unbothered. The sky overhead is the dull kind of blue that tells you it's going to be one of those work days where everything drags. But then something flickers. Not the traffic lights, not your phone. The sun, at first you think it's clouds. Maybe a storm front moving in faster, but the edges of the light go sharp, too sharp. The brightness dims as like someone just pulled the world's biggest dimmer switch. People on the street stop walking. It gets quiet in that strange collective breath-holding way, and then it's gone. Not blocked, not eclipsed, just gone. 1 second it's casting shadows, and the next it's like a set light just switched off on an empty stage. Everyone looks up, some shielding their eyes, though there's nothing to shield from now. Phones go up, cameras click. The kind of thing people assume is a prank or viral ad campaign. But the sky doesn't brighten again. The temperature dips, subtle at first, almost like the sun ducked behind a mountain. Only there are no mountains. You're still standing there, blinking up at a sky that's now a greyish black. Not nighttime exactly, but definitely not day. Streetlights start to buzz on early, confused. Your phone says it's 10:17 a.m, but your instincts don't care. Every hair on your arm is standing up. Something ancient in your gut is whispering wrong, wrong, wrong. That's when the screaming starts. Not a lot. Just one woman at first. She drops her phone, points upward like she's seen a ghost, and starts sobbing. A man next to her laughs nervously, trying to talk her down, but she doesn't stop. And just like that, the illusion breaks. People begin to run. Meanwhile, on every screen, in every language, the news reports start rolling in. Unexplained solar blackout. Global sunlight failure. Experts investigating massive astronomical anomaly. The anchors try to stay calm, but their faces betray them, wide eyes, thin lips. Every scientist they interview uses phrases like working hypothesis and extremely unusual event. No one says end of the world, not yet. The power grids don't crash, at least not immediately. But as energy demand surges, some cities start to brown out. Your boss texts, WFH today. Then 5 minutes later, actually, just take the day. As if one day will fix this, as if anyone's working right now. By late afternoon, still pitch black, people are gathering in parks with battery-powered lanterns. You find yourself among them, your eyes aching from too much screen glow. Children are crying, some people are singing, others are live streaming, capturing the first dark day like it's some kind of movie premiere. The strange part? The stars are visible, not faintly like at night, but sharp, clean, unnervingly crisp. All of them. Constellations you never even knew existed crowd the sky like curious onlookers. That alone should be beautiful, but it's not. Not when you realise the moon isn't up there at all. It too has vanished. Here's the historical fact for you. This isn't totally unprecedented. In 536 AD, volcanic eruptions created a mystery cloud that blocked sunlight for over a year. Crops failed. Snow fell in China in summer. It was called the worst year to be alive. But even then, the sun was just obscured, not gone. The quirky fact, in 1950, a strange midday darkness fell over parts of the Midwest US. Due to a mix of smoke and fog, people panicked, thinking it was Judgment Day. Spoiler, it wasn't. But this is different. Scholars, when they look back at this, will argue over what happened that morning. Was it a sudden solar nova, a cosmic anomaly? Or something bigger, darker, and not entirely explainable through physics? One camp early on claims that it could be a Dyson sphere, an alien megastructure harnessing our sun's energy. Others laugh them off. But not for long. You don't sleep that night. No one really does. Your brain doesn't believe it's night, and your body doesn't buy it's day. The sky stays that permanent void, like a Photoshop background that never finished loading. You lie on your bed, fully dressed, heart racing in a slow, constant thud. At 10:16 a.m. the next day, you check the sky again. Still gone. No dawn. No hint. Just an absence so loud it hums in your ears. People stop asking when it's coming back. They start asking if. Noon comes and it stays night. That's when it starts to really settle in. This isn't a power outage or some weird solar eclipse gone rogue. It's something else entirely. Something permanent feeling. 12 noon, and not even a sliver of light breaks through. You're standing in your kitchen, staring out a window that reflects your own confused face back at you like it's mocking you. Everything outside looks the same as it did at 3 a.m. Hazy, dim. You flip the light switch, even though it's already on. The bulb hums weakly, casting that familiar yellow glow across the countertop. Somehow it feels pathetic, fragile, like your house has become a stage set for some off-Broadway production of How Not to Handle Cosmic Horror. The city doesn't know what to do. No one does. You get alerts on your phone every 15 minutes. Emergency broadcast system updates that say nothing useful. Remain indoors. Preserve energy. Do not panic. Yeah, great advice. Tell that to the crowds looting sporting goods stores and bulk buying everything from batteries to marshmallows. Not even essentials. Just whatever people can grab. You watch a live stream where someone punches a man over a pile of electric toothbrushes. The comments are unhinged. Sun went out and you all forgot how to brush? By 3 p.m. the highways are gridlocked. Not because people are leaving, no one knows where to go, but because everyone's doing laps. Driving has become the new coping mechanism. Windows down, music up, headlights slicing through the eternal twilight. You take your car out too, not because you need anything, but because sitting still feels like giving up. The roads are full of zombie-eyed drivers, just cruising as if movement equals safety. The weird part? No honking, no road rage, just a constant hum of engines and confused playlists drifting out open windows. The government holds its first international briefing, broadcast across every platform you've ever downloaded. The leaders don't look like leaders. They look like substitute teachers reading from a syllabus they've never seen. Phrases like solar anomaly, unprecedented obstruction, and high atmospheric irregularities get tossed around. A scientist from Geneva clears his throat and says the phrase global light cessation event. You can tell he came up with that one on the drive over. They don't know, that's the truth of it. No one does. That night people try to recreate day. Parks fill with floodlights. Offices reopen at 2 a.m. Cafes serve breakfast whenever anyone asks. There's a collective refusal to accept the concept of perpetual night, so the world forces itself into a loop of pretend morning. You find yourself in line at a coffee shop at 4:30 a.m, surrounded by people wearing sunglasses indoors just for a hit of delusion. Someone jokes that if we all chant sunrise at the same time, maybe it'll come back. No one laughs. Across social media, the hashtags bloom like mould. #dark at noon, #eternal midnight, where is our star? And the memes, oh, they pour in. Photoshopped suns holding BRB signs. Sun emojis with little vacation hats. A TikTok trend starts where people stage dramatic funeral scenes for their tanning oil. It's funny until it isn't, especially when someone posts a video of their kid asking, "Mummy, did the sun die because I didn't brush my teeth?" You start noticing changes in yourself too. You lose track of time more easily. Hours blur. You eat dinner and then look at the clock and realise it's technically still lunchtime, or was lunch yesterday. Your circadian rhythm packs its bags and skips town entirely. You sleep in fits, 20 minutes here, an hour there. You wake up sweating or freezing with no idea what time it is, or if that even matters anymore. And it's not just you. Across the world, behavioural psychologists start issuing warnings. Be aware of emotional irregularities. Anchor yourself with rituals. Create light schedules in your home. Someone suggests using classical music to mimic sunrise. Another recommends synthetic dawn alarm clocks. It all feels like putting stickers on a cracked window. Here's your historical tidbit for tonight. During World War II, blackout curtains were required in many cities to prevent enemy bombers from spotting targets. People lived in constant twilight, rationing light and hope. But even then, they knew morning would come. Your quirky fact: In 1994, an earthquake in Los Angeles knocked out power across the city. People called 911 to report a weird cloud in the sky. It turned out they were seeing the Milky Way for the first time. No light pollution, just the galaxy in full overwhelming glory. The universe was always there, they just hadn't looked up in the dark before. And here's the debate. Is this environmental, cosmic, artificial? Some scientists now whisper about alien interference, not because they believe it, but because they've ruled everything else out. The most common theory right now is that something is blocking the sun. A structure, perhaps, or a field of unknown energy. But if so, where did it come from? Why now? Why our sun? And why doesn't it let even a flicker through? You open your fridge and just a step. The light inside is the only daylight you've seen in hours. You linger there, hand resting on a tub of yogurt you're not hungry for. You close the door too fast, as if something might notice you basking in it. It's been 26 hours. The birds have stopped. The dogs don't bark as much. People walk slower, like they're being watched. Somewhere in the distance, probably miles away, someone starts blasting "Here Comes the Sun" from a rooftop speaker. It echoes into the sky like a desperate prayer disguised as irony. It doesn't answer. Apocalypse, but make it bureaucratic. That's how the world handles the third day without sunlight. Not with fire or brimstone or a collective primal scream into the void, but with paperwork, policy memos, emergency meetings, and 1,000 conflicting rules that no one wants to enforce. You wake up, if you can call it that, to the news that your city has declared a level 3 solar crisis. What does that mean? No one knows, but there's a hotline for it. You call, they put you on hold with the flute music. It's not that the world ends all at once, it's more like it starts slowly sinking in molasses. Some things keep moving, because they have to. Garbage trucks still come, buses run, sort of. School is temporarily restructured, which turns out to mean children attend Zoom classes at whatever time their parents are still awake. Your neighbour, a third-grade teacher named Marla, starts drinking coffee at 2 a.m. and grading homework by candlelight. She waves to you through her kitchen window, red-eyed and twitchy, holding a mug that says "Rise and Shine" like a cosmic joke. You get your first sunless routine email from your employer, suggested wake and sleep times based on artificial light cycles. They're trying to make people feel like there's still order, but it reads like a script for a dystopian sitcom. Remember to set your daylight lamp to 60% for breakfast vibes, it says, like it's just another Monday. Meanwhile, in the group chat, your co-workers are sending blurry photos of their vitamin D gummies arranged into smiley faces. One person writes, "If I get one more brighter future pun from HR, I'm quitting." Around the world, politicians rush to give statements. The French president appears on a dimly lit stage, wearing what looks like a ski parka, and saying something poetic about la lumière de l'âme. The American president, hoarse and blinking too much, calls the sun's disappearance a great and perplexing inconvenience, which becomes a meme before the live stream even ends. Perplexing inconvenience is suddenly trending, slapped onto everything from protest signs to black t-shirts. They are not lying exactly, they just don't have anything real to say. No one does. You watch as the United Nations calls an emergency assembly. They broadcast it worldwide with ceremonial urgency, but half the delegates are visibly exhausted. One guy's asleep on his desk. Another is clearly using a ring light and drinking something from a flask he thinks is off camera. The Secretary General reads a statement about global collaboration, universal coordination, and shared luminous legacy. It's like listening to someone read poetry at a funeral they're pretending isn't happening. Then there are the conspiracy theorists. Oh, they flourish like mushrooms in a damp, lightless cellar. Within hours, forums explode with wild speculation. Some say the government knew this was coming and hid it for decades. Others claim it's the result of CERN opening a black hole, or the Earth slipping into a parallel universe. Or, this one is weirdly popular, a solar tax evasion scandal involving interdimensional auditors. A popular channel called The Bright Lie gets over 1 million subscribers in 2 days. The host, a guy with a beard, sunglasses, and an unhealthy amount of caffeine in his bloodstream, claims the sun is still there. We've just been deliberately blinded by a global cabal using ChemCleo. Clouds. He live streams himself, pointing a flashlight at his backyard trees and shouting, "See, shadows still exist." You want to laugh, but part of you envies how sure he sounds. Here's your historical nugget. During the Cold War, Both the US and Soviet Union explored launching giant reflective satellites to bounce sunlight onto Earth. A kind of orbital mirror system. It never worked, thankfully, but it tells you something about humanity's obsession with controlling the sky. Fringe fact for you. In 2008, a startup tried to create personal sunlight simulators for seasonal depression. They were shaped like baby suns with smiley faces and names like Helio Buddy. Most of them melted. But now people are paying thousands to buy whatever still exists. Meanwhile, legal systems begin to strain. Cities pass bizarre curfews not based on time but on behavioural thresholds. If more than 10% of the population is observed weeping in public, martial law may be considered. One town in Oregon tries to implement a mandatory cheerfulness hour enforced by musical drones. It ends in lawsuits. There's also the growing mess of daylight saving time. The irony is too much. Lawmakers argue over whether to adjust clocks forward or backward, even though clocks now serve no purpose. Day and night are words people still use, but they've lost their meaning. You find yourself checking your microwave clock like it might lie to you. Your phone still updates automatically, which feels like gaslighting. You haven't seen your own reflection in 3 days. You avoid mirrors now, not because you're scared of what you'll see, but because you're not sure you'll recognise yourself under this constant haze of LED skin. Everyone looks a little sick, a little glossy, like mannequins wearing human fatigue. And then there are the smells. That's the part no one talks about yet. Without sunlight, moisture lingers. Mould blooms in corners. Clothes take forever to dry. The scent of damp laundry becomes a kind of national perfume. You take 2 showers a day, not because you need to, but because it's something to do that involves warmth and light. Eventually, someone starts printing solar-themed currency, literally. There are called sun bucks, bright yellow bills with sunscreens and smiley faces on them, used as barter in local markets that run off car batteries and propane lanterns. You trade your blender for 3 of them and a half-melted chocolate bar. It's unclear what the exchange rate is, but no one cares. Open scholarly debate of the week? Whether this is a permanent astrophysical shift or a temporary event we're just interpreting as forever. One team from Japan suggests that the sun might still be emitting radiation, just not in the visible spectrum. Another theorist claims we've entered a simulation pause, a cosmic loading screen. He wears a black turtleneck and says things like, "Reality is modular, with the calm of a man who owns too many crystals. You go home, you sit in your living room with all the lights on. A sitcom plays on low volume. The laugh track echoes oddly in the gloom. You're not scared exactly, not yet. Just waiting. For what, you don't know. Maybe for someone to finally say it out loud. The sun is gone, and it might not be coming back. Refrigerators fail, so do tempers. It's been over a week now, long enough for denial to decay into inconvenience. An inconvenience to start blooming into something colder, meaner, and much harder to ignore. The power grid is strained, groaning like a sick animal under the weight of a world suddenly leaning on it for every basic need. Cities start rotating blackouts. Rural areas go dark and stay that way. And your fridge, that faithful glowing rectangle, coughs once, literally makes a strange clunking sound, and dies. You open it to check. The milk smells like betrayal. Your frozen dinners are a memory. You throw them out into the backyard like an offering. Somewhere out there, raccoons are probably having the best week of their lives. The temperature has dropped too, not instantly, but gradually, like someone leaving a door open to space. Without the sun's constant hug of warmth, the earth starts to cool. A degree here, a few degrees there. At first, it feels like autumn came early. You layer up, sweaters in August. Cute, right? But then the frost comes. Not just overnight, but mid-afternoon. You wake up and find frost lacing the inside of your windows like the house is exhaling ice. You drag your space heater into the bathroom because it's the smallest room, the easiest to warm. That becomes your new base camp. Shower steam becomes survival. The heat from your laptop is now a treasured byproduct. You find yourself charging it just to open 10 tabs and rest your hands on the keyboard. Meanwhile, food supplies start to spoil, supermarkets smell wrong, rotting produce and damp cardboard and desperation. You grab what you can. Canned goods, dried pasta, instant coffee. A guy in the next aisle is frantically shaking a bottle of ranch dressing like maybe it'll magically regenerate. People no longer pretend it's just a temporary situation. There's a kind of civil politeness that starts to erode, like chipped paint. You see it in the way the woman behind the deli counter slaps your ham slices down too hard. in the way someone steals your cart while you're 2 feet away, in the way no one says bless you when someone sneezes anymore. That's the thing. When the lights go, the manners go with them. You visit your parents. They've converted their garage into a cold storage unit. Finally putting that insulation to work, your dad jokes, half smiling, stacking cans like it's a game of Jenga. Your mum's growing mushrooms in the laundry room. Not recreational, though that too is becoming a thing, but portobellos, the big meaty ones. She shows you like she's unveiling a secret garden. They like the dark, she says, with a look that might be pride or might be something else. The local news begins reading more like weather reports for another planet. Temperature maps are shades of bruised blue. Meteorologists use words like record-setting low and unseasonably glacial. One station starts offering daily Sun Hope Index, a graphic that measures public optimism about the sun's return. The line trends downward. You hear about people in Florida freezing to death in their homes. Pipes burst in Georgia. Citrus crops fail almost overnight. There are photos of orange groves turned black and skeletal. Farmers cry on camera. One man says he tried to warm his greenhouse with a diesel generator until it exploded. Here's a historical anchor for you. During the Mount Tambora eruption in 1815, the world experienced what came to be called the year without a summer. Snow in June, famine across Europe. It inspired Mary Shelley to write Frankenstein. Imagine that. One volcano, and a whole season blinked out. Now multiply that feeling by forever. Weird science time. In the 1970s, a few scientists theorized a planetary-scale dimming due to something called global dimming, an actual phenomenon where pollution particles block sunlight. It was a fringe idea back then. Now, in forums, people drag it back up. Maybe this is nature's way of pulling the curtain, not punishment, just rebalancing. But the real debate begins with human emotion. Experts start warning of cold rage, a new term for aggression linked to light deprivation and plummeting temps. Apparently, being chilly and sleepless turns people into twitchy little porcupines. Fights break out in line for generators. One town in Canada starts issuing thermal blankets to diffuse domestic disputes. Therapists go viral on TikTok, offering rage-soothing ASMR. You feel it too, that brittleness. You're snapping at people even when you don't mean to. You burn your tongue on lukewarm soup and want to throw the bowl. Your cat meows too loudly and you shout at it, only to cry 5 minutes later, petting its confused little head. Friendships change, some fracture, some deepen. You and your best friend spend 6 hours building a solar oven out of desperation and cardboard. It doesn't work, obviously, but you laugh anyway, real ugly laughter. It's the only warmth you've felt all week. Then the radio broadcasts shift. Less pop music, more emergency updates. Less weather, more mental health check-ins. DJs take calls in the middle of the night, which now means nothing. One caller whispers, "I keep dreaming of sunlight. I wake up crying." The DJ just says, "Yeah, same." Religious groups start holding vigils, not hopeful ones, but kind of grim, like funerals, candles flickering in the wind. They pray to the sun like it's a missing person. Others go the opposite route. New Age groups spin it as a reset. The earth cleansing itself of toxic rhythms. One guy posts a video claiming that the sun hasn't vanished. We've simply evolved past needing it. He glows with ring-like confidence. The kicker? Ice cream is gone, not just sold out, extinct. There's a collective moment when people realise the entire frozen dessert section of the global economy has perished. Someone posts, "No more Choco Tacos." This truly is the darkest timeline. It sounds like a joke, but you almost cry when you read it. You start to understand what the long cold really means. It's not just the lack of heat, it's the lack of pattern, of signals, of structure. You begin to forget what morning feels like, what it smells like, the way sunlight used to hit your coffee cup just right, making it look like liquid gold. Now it's all shadows and static and pale, buzzing bulbs. You sit by the window at dinner time, watching the frost creep inward on the glass, and you whisper something. Not a prayer exactly, just a word. Soon, you don't even know what you're hoping for anymore. Meanwhile, in the bunkers below Denver, things are not as cool and collected as they were designed to be. Officially, what? It's the United States Continuity of Government Command Center. Unofficially, it's a giant molehill full of nerds, generals, and caffeine-dependent policy wonks trying to hold the entire concept of civilization together with whiteboards and sarcasm. You imagine it like some retro-futurist lair from a spy movie. And honestly, you're not far off, except no one's laughing, and the vending machines ran out of peanut M&Ms on day 2. You hear about the bunkers in a second-hand way, first as rumours, then as headlines once the press finds out someone in charge is still alive. Buried deep under Colorado's Rocky Mountains, the facility is said to house top scientists, military brass, and essential personnel, which you now realise means the kind of people who know how to calculate orbital decay and don't blink when you say the words stellar collapse. Also the president, supposedly, though whether it's the actual president or just a decoy with good teeth and worse ideas is still up for debate. Inside, they've been running simulations since day 1, trying to figure out what scenario explains the sudden absence of solar radiation. No EMPs, no radiation spikes, no gravitational anomalies, no massive celestial object visibly blocking the sun, just a clean cut-off like someone unplugged the star and walked away whistling. One faction, mostly physicists from MIT and a few combative Germans, believes this is a quantum occlusion event. Something so rare and weird it's never been observed, only theorised. Basically, well, they think the sun may still be there, just no longer interacting with our dimension. Their theory board looks like a Denny's placemat had a baby with a particle accelerator manual. Another group, the mirror sun theorists, suggests we're seeing the result of a solar inversion, a theoretical scenario where the sun undergoes a spontaneous dimensional phase shift and becomes invisible or non-reactive. One guy insists it's just hiding. Like a dog under a couch, he gets laughed at, then he stops talking altogether. Then there's the alien contingency team. Not officially labelled that, of course. They're called the Extra Natural Phenomena Working Group, but everyone just calls them the Tinfoil Club. To be fair, they're only half wrong most of the time. Their leading hypothesis is that a civilization advanced enough to construct a Dyson sphere, a massive structure built to enclose a star and capture its energy, has done exactly that, around our sun, without bothering to ask first, or leave a note. The generals hate that one. Not because it's outlandish, but because there's no counterattack plan for it. You can't nuke a megastructure around the sun. You can't even complain to their alien HOA. Here's your bit of real-world historical trivia. During the Cold War, NORAD, the US and Canada's Joint Aerospace Defense Command, was headquartered inside Cheyenne Mountain just like this. It had 25-ton blast doors, its own water supply, and enough spam to feed an army. Everyone assumed it was built to survive nukes. No one thought it might be needed for the sun calling in sick indefinitely. The oddball fact of the day, there's a team in the bunker that's solely dedicated to monitoring animals, like wildlife behaviour. A herpetologist from Oregon is leading the charge, logging data on frogs, bats, birds and whatever else still moves topside. Apparently some species have begun behaving erratically, migrating out of season, forming odd sleeping patterns, some going completely silent. The frogs, for example, stopped mating. As if even they know now is not the time to bring children into this mess. And of course there's debate. Always debate. One school of thought insists this is the slow end. A curtain call on human arrogance. That civilizations like ours are flashes in the cosmic pan, and we're simply hitting our expiration date. The other side believes this is a test, possibly of a technological nature, and that we're being observed, rated, evaluated. A galactic reality show where Earth just failed the pilot episode. But deep in those underground halls, there's something even more telling, the rations. Yes, the food. Because down there, they're supposed to have enough supplies to last 5 years. But within 10 days, the requests start. Not for more food, but for more variety. A mutiny over canned corn and freeze-dried chili. One engineer barters a bottle of maple syrup for a seat in a warmer dorm. Someone else creates a black market lottery for chocolate-covered espresso beans. Civilization doesn't collapse over starvation. It collapses over boredom. Outside, on the surface, people are starting to ask questions, louder ones. Why hasn't the government sent anyone to space? Where are the probes? Why aren't we talking about Mars or building mirror satellites or doing something big? Theories spin faster than the moon, which again, no one has seen since day 1. You begin to notice something weird about the sky. It's still starry, still deep, still dark, but some constellations look wrong. A little stretched. A little too crisp. A new star appears in Orion's belt, and a group of amateur astronomers on Reddit lose their collective minds. The post goes viral, then it disappears. You're not sure if it was deleted, or you dreamed it. Your sense of real and not real is fraying. The bunker, meanwhile, begins weekly broadcasts, dry, sterile reports spoken in a voice that sounds like it belongs to a bored AI. Sunlight activity remains at 0. Temperature drop is within expected parameters, no anomalous radiation detected. Every week the same, no change, no hope, like they're just reading the same bulletin to make it feel like someone's still in charge. And you? You start noticing your own personal bunker tendencies. You stay in one room most of the day. You hoard snacks. You start using batteries sparingly as if you're in a survival game. You dream about canned peaches. You haven't called your cousin in a week, not because you're mad, but because you don't want to explain how you've started talking to your houseplants like they're co-workers. The worst part is the stillness. Outside it's too quiet. Snow falls, but it doesn't melt. Your footsteps feel louder. Dogs bark less. Children play less. The world is dimming from the inside out. And somewhere deep beneath the Rockies, humanity's brightest minds sit under 1,000 tons of reinforced rock, watching monitors flicker, hoping for a single blip of light from the void. So far, nothing. But if you listen closely, they say, sometimes the deep space sensors pick up a faint hum. Not solar radiation, not cosmic background noise, just a sound, rhythmic, like breathing. The world's last sunrise party begins with a defiant scream, echoing off the walls of a snow-covered high school gymnasium in a nowhere town that's suddenly become the loudest place left on Earth. Welcome to Klamath, Oregon. Population, confused, freezing, and absolutely unwilling to die quietly in the dark. They call it Sunstock, because of course they do. A mix between a music festival, a protest, and the weirdest group therapy session you've ever seen. It starts as a joke. One last dance for the sun, someone says on local radio, and then spreads. Flyers go up half as parody, half as prayer. People arrive on foot, by sled, on snowmobiles. Some bring instruments, others bring lanterns, firewood, glow sticks, disco balls powered by hand cranks. There's a man with a solar panel strapped to his back like a turtle shell, even though if it hasn't charged in weeks. Doesn't matter, it's symbolic now, you don't even know why you go. Curiosity maybe, loneliness definitely. Word spreads through social media like wildfire. Well, like what wildfire used to be. The gym is decked out with every battery-operated light source imaginable. Strobe lights powered by car batteries. LED strips duct taped to folding chairs. Someone even built a fake sunrise out of construction paper and Christmas lights. It flickers occasionally. No one cares. Inside, people dance. Badly, wildly, with abandon. Old women with glowing earrings. Teens with paint smeared across their faces like war masks. Couples holding hands under ceiling-mounted heat lamps. The DJ wears a full sun costume, giant yellow foam rays and all, and presses play on a looped remix of Here Comes the Sun that's been slowed down to half speed. It's haunting, hypnotic, beautiful in a broken way. A guy next to you says, maybe we should have done this before the sun disappeared. He's got wine in a thermos and tears in his eyes. You don't ask why. There's a moment, just past 3 a.m, when everything goes silent. The crowd stops. Even the music fades out. Someone cuts the lights. Total darkness. You hear breaths, sniffles, the buzz of dying batteries. Then slowly, one by one, lighters flick on, matches are struck. The glow spreads like fireflies in the void. And someone starts to sing. It's not good singing, but it's honest, raw. That old Beatles tune again, but shaky and warbled. Others join in. By the second chorus, 100 people are singing, poorly and beautifully. And someone has thrown a handful of glitter into the air like stardust. The glitter hangs there, catching flashlight beams, tiny stars in a man-made galaxy. It feels like religion, or grief, or maybe both. You remember a historical echo in 1942 as bombs fell on London during the Blitz? People gathered in underground stations and sang together in the dark. Not out of hope, but out of stubbornness. To remind each other they were still alive, still here. Fringe fact. There's a real psychological phenomenon called communal resilience. When large groups face existential threats, they don't always panic. Sometimes they party, literally. From New Year's Eve during Y2K to the End of the World festivals in 2012, humans have a weird, beautiful tendency to face doom with glitter and bad music. Back at Sunstock, someone brings out cake. A full sheet cake with yellow frosting and "We Miss You" written in bold red icing. They cut it with a pocket knife and serve it on napkins and standing in snow boots. Someone hands you a piece. You eat it slowly. It's dry. Too sweet. Perfect. Outside, the sky remains unchanged. Heavy, star-choked, blank. But inside that gym for a few hours there is warmth. Community. A kind of artificial dawn born out of sheer human refusal. But nothing lasts. The generator powering the lights finally sputters and dies. One last whir and then click. Darkness swallows everything. People cheer anyway, for no reason. Maybe because it's too scary to do anything else. Maybe because the party ending means they have to go back to pretending this is normal. You walk home in the dark with a stranger you met 2 hours ago. They talk about how their grandmother used to tell stories about the sun like it was a character. The giver of days, she called it. A lazy god who stretched across the sky and took naps behind clouds. Maybe it just overslept, the stranger says. Maybe it'll come back tomorrow. You want to believe them, you really do, but the truth sits inside you like a cold pebble. The sun doesn't oversleep. It burns, it shines, it explodes. It doesn't vanish like a soap bubble. And yet, here you are, walking through a frozen town under a sky that's been star-painted for too long, listening to wind rush between shuttered buildings, carrying the faint echo of laughter and fading music. You pass houses with windows boarded up, not because of danger, but because no one wants to see the blackness anymore. One yard still has a plastic flamingo in it, half buried in snow, its bright pink faded under months of LED lamps and grey skies. You stare at it for a long time. There's an open question among scientists now. Is it harder to adapt to constant darkness or to constant daylight? In places like northern Norway, people have lived with both. The difference is choice. In Tromsø, the sun always returns. Here, no one knows. There is no seasonal news cycle, no countdown, just a question mark hanging above the world like a dead bulb. You make it home, your hands are cold, your cheeks hurt from fake smiling. You look in the mirror and say out loud, "Good morning," just to hear what it sounds like. It echoes back, sarcastic, hollow. You close your eyes and picture the sun, not in a metaphorical, dreamy way. You try to remember what it physically looked like, the way it made glass sparkle, the warm red behind your eyelids. You can't get it right. The memory slips around your thoughts like a wet fish. You fall asleep trying to remember. You dream of yellow frosting, and somewhere the last candle from the last party flickers out unnoticed. The moon's awkward solo tour begins like a badly reviewed one-man play. You don't notice it right away, not with everything else going on, but eventually someone points it out. Not just the absence of the sun, but the moon's complete no-show. It's one of those observations that you can't believe you missed, like looking at a familiar face and realizing they've been wearing someone else's glasses all day. You step outside, expecting that familiar pale coin to be somewhere overhead, casting its soft light. But the sky is just starfield, flat and infinite. No moon, no sliver, no crescent, not even a shy shadow. At first, no one talks about it, probably because it feels like a footnote in a much bigger disaster. Like, hey, remember how the sun vanished? Oh, also, the moon ghosted us. But the silence around it becomes a vacuum, and before long, that vacuum fills with wild theories. The moon didn't disappear at the same moment as the sun. People dig through their phone galleries and security cam archives, and sure enough, there it is, visible the night after the sun vanished. Not bright, of course, but still casting some familiar silver hue. Then, 2 nights later, nothing. No light. No lunar glow, just a quiet vanishing act. It slipped out of the sky like an embarrassed party guest. Astronomers are baffled. Amateur stargazers take to YouTube with videos titled things like "Moon Missing" or "Not Clickbait." And lunar abduction, the theory, let's talk about it. Some believe it's still there, just no longer reflecting anything. A blank rock, a dead eye. Others say it's simply been eclipsed indefinitely, though that would require a perfect cosmic alignment that hasn't changed in months. Too perfect. A historian on one news program talks about how ancient cultures worshipped both the sun and the moon as deities, balancing masculine and feminine energy, light and dark, warmth and cold. What does it mean, he asks, when both abandon us? The segment ends with him staring blankly into the camera as if awaiting an answer. The fringe theories evolve fast. A podcast host from Santa Fe claims the moon was always artificial. A hollow satellite placed in orbit by someone who wanted to watch us. When the sun vanished, he argues, the moon lost its job and left. Imagine, he says, if your entire purpose was to reflect someone else's light and they never showed up again. He calls it a lunar depression event. The idea goes viral. People start writing poetry about the moon's grief. Here's your historical flashback. In 1970, 2 Soviet scientists published a paper suggesting the moon might be a megastructure, hollow even. It was laughed off, but in the current climate, the idea gets recycled. People ask, if the sun could be taken, maybe the moon was a surveillance device, and its owners had decided to collect it. Quirky detail. A town in Arizona paints a giant moon on the inside dome of their planetarium and schedules weekly moon sightings. You buy a ticket and sit with 20 strangers under a blue-painted ceiling, while a guy with a headset says, "There she is, just above the horizon." It's ridiculous, but when the fake moonlight hits your face, you nearly cry. Scientists keep trying to detect the moon's gravitational influence. After all, if it's still up there, the ocean should still feel it. But tides are all wrong now, staggered, sluggish, collapsing in some areas and rising in others. Weather patterns warp, some coastlines see floodwaters creep in at random intervals. It's like a drunk moon is driving the tides, one meteorologist says, but others claim the pull is gone completely. The world's calendars fracture. Lunar months don't make sense without a moon to track. The few societies that still follow moon cycles, pagans, certain set and Buddhist traditions, and a few lost farmers in Vermont, find themselves disoriented. "We planted by the moon," one woman says on a podcast. "Now we don't plant." Open scholarly debate whether the moon's disappearance is linked causally or coincidentally to the solar blackout. Some claim it's a byproduct of whatever cosmic phenomenon is occurring, a gravitational anomaly. Others argue it's an intentional removal, but no one can find a single piece of new debris, no signs of impact, no gravitational lensing, no evidence that the moon was destroyed or moved. It's just not there. You spend more time looking up now, not hopefully, not even out of curiosity really, just habit, waiting, searching for a hint of something, a glint of white, a curve, something to say the moon is still with you, like a distant relative who stopped sending postcards. But the sky never changes. It remains this deep, featureless thing, stitched together by constellations you don't recognise anymore. Stars look too sharp, too intentional. You see new patterns forming, clusters that seem to move very slowly over days and weeks. One shape in particular starts showing up in Reddit threads and amateur blogs. People call it the Eye. It's not a real constellation, or it wasn't. Now people swear it's watching. People say it wasn't there before the sun vanished. Some say it pulses. You start seeing the eye in drawings, on walls, scratched into frost on bus stops. No one claims responsibility, it just spreads. The shape is simple, one circle inside another, with lines radiating out like lashes. It's not threatening exactly, just present. Like the moon used to be. Always above, always watching. At night, which is now all the time, children ask their parents where the moon went. Parents fumble for answers. It's behind the clouds. It's on vacation. It's shy right now. You overhear one kid ask, "Did the moon and the sun break up?" His mother doesn't reply. You remember stories from your childhood, myths where the moon was a goddess who chased her brother, the sun, across the sky. Maybe she caught him. Maybe they both got tired. Maybe they decided to run away together. The more time passes, the more the moon's absence weighs heavier than the sun's. Because the sun, you think, was always distant, untouchable, but the moon felt close, achievable, almost human, and it smiled at you, followed your car home, lit your way down dark paths, and now it's gone. You light a candle and leave it on the windowsill. A silly thing, a tiny flicker for something that once ruled tides and songs and dreams. You don't expect it to bring anything back, but still, when it burns out in the middle of the night, you wake up suddenly, as if something had been watching, and then, quietly, had turned away. The cults wake up fast, faster than governments, faster than science. They bloom like fungi in the dark, sprouting in alleys, living rooms, abandoned churches, Discord servers and subway tunnels. All it takes is a little mystery, a lot of fear, and a few candles arranged in the right geometric pattern. And boom, you've got yourself a following. The first one you hear about calls themselves the Order of Radiant Absence. Yeah, it really rolls off the tongue. Their whole belief system is built around the idea that the sun didn't vanish. It transcended. They wear all black, carry tiny pocket mirrors, and speak only in whispers. If you ask what they're whispering about, one of them might hand you a pamphlet with phrases like, The luminary withdrew its judgmental gaze, and true vision begins in shadow. It's got the vibe of a haunted poetry slam and a multi-level marketing scheme all rolled into one. Then there's the Children of the Oven, a cult/commune in the Midwest who believe the sun's disappearance was the punishment for our culinary sins, specifically the rise of microwavable food. They've banned all processed items. Eat only things roasted over open flame and pray facing old pizza ovens. They talk about the Great Reheating and believe that when humanity is pure of preservatives, the sun will return in all its golden, gluten-free glory. Closer to home, a group takes over an abandoned bowling alley and converts it into a temple. They call themselves Glotarians. They wear neon robes, speak only in high-pitched tones, and believe that artificial light is the new divine. They worship LEDs, Christmas lights, lava lamps, anything that glows. Their rituals involve synchronized blinking dance circles and chanting phrases like, "Lumen is love." You attend one of their ceremonies just to see what it's about, and leave feeling mildly amused, mildly unnerved, and with a flyer promising eternal internal brightness. Here's a historical funhouse mirror for you. Back in 1804, a preacher named William Miller predicted the second coming of Christ. Thousands believed him. When it didn't happen, many walked away, but others doubled down and formed new movements, some of which still exist today. It's called the Great Disappointment, and historians love bringing it up in situations like this, when belief persists in the face of absolute confusion. Now, here in the modern Great Disappointment, people are doing exactly the same thing. The brain craves meaning, and in the absence of sunlight, it'll project light onto anything. A flickering street lamp becomes a beacon. A shared hallucination becomes scripture. A charismatic podcaster with a suspiciously symmetrical face becomes a prophet. There's Sun Silence, a doomsday group with a Tumblr aesthetic and a love of monochrome sweaters. Their belief? The sun hasn't disappeared. It's listening, observing. They hold stillness ceremonies, during which followers lie motionless for hours, faces upturned, waiting to be judged. Their motto? Be seen by what is not seen. You try it once, in your living room, out of morbid curiosity. You last 20 minutes before twitching, sneezing, and ruining the whole vibe. 10 points from house stillness, but not all cults are soft and poetic. There are the solar wretches, who believe humanity betrayed the sun and must suffer in darkness. They wear sackcloth, self-flagellate in public parks, and smear ashes on their faces. They block intersections, shouting things like, "Let the heat of regret scorch your bones." They're banned from most cities now, but they stream daily confessions via grainy video, yelling at their webcams with fire in their eyes and snow in their hair. Then there are the tech cults. You know, the ones who always existed on the fringe, but have now gone full digital messiah. The algorithm ascendant claims the sun was swallowed by bad code, that this is a simulation error, and the only way to restore reality is to align ourselves with the purest logic. They chant lines of Python as prayer. They offer USB blessing drives that supposedly contain light-correcting code. They claim they've cracked the truth of existence, but no one can understand what they're saying, except the other programmers, who all nod like it makes perfect sense. Quirky fact, in '62, a small village in Colombia hosted a sun-summoning ritual during a solar eclipse. It involved music, mirror dancing, and releasing thousands of yellow balloons. The sun came back, of course. It always did back then. But now, people are digging up those rituals, remixing them for modern times. One guy in California launches a weekly heliodrum livestream, where people bang pots and pans under red floodlights, trying to summon the sun like it's a stray cat. It's dumb, it's loud, it gets 5 million views. And don't forget the merch. Cults today aren't just spiritual movements, they're brands. You see Sun Come Home shirts, Team Radiant Void mugs, Glotarian leggings with little liddy strips down the sides. Etsy is a goldmine of fringe theology right now. Someone sells solar sacrament kits that include a candle, a mirror shard, and a raisin of instructions you don't ask. The open scholarly debate, whether these cults are dangerous, therapeutic, or inevitable. Psychologists argue over it. Some say people need a container for their fear, and belief offers structure when science offers silence. Others worry about extremism, groupthink, and the rise of charismatic figures who start out quirky and end up terrifying. You see it yourself. At first, the cults are weird, funny, something to gossip about over canned peaches. But then one blocks the entrance to a hospital, demanding that doctors stop interfering with the solar will. Another group breaks into a power station, trying to reroute all electricity to their underground temple. No one's laughing then. You get an invite, left in your mailbox without a stamp. Just an envelope with the words, "We remember the light." Inside is a glossy photo of a woman glowing under what looks like a full-spectrum lamp. She saw it, text says, and it saw her. There's a location and a time. You don't go, but you keep the card just in case. One night you pass a church that's been taken over by one of the newer groups. The steeple glows red. They've replaced the cross with a neon spiral. Inside you can hear chanting. Harmonized, monotone. It sounds peaceful, like an engine idling. You stand there for a while in the frostbitten air, thinking about how easily people rebuild belief from ashes, how fast humans pivot from panic to ritual. You're not immune. You carry your own weird superstitions now. You never unplug your lamp. You knock on wood before checking the weather. You say thank you every time your heater clicks on. You whisper to the ceiling some nights. You don't know who you're talking to, but someone might be listening. A sun-sized gap in science opens wider with every passing hour, like a silent wound no one knows how to stitch. The smartest people on Earth are all saying the same thing now. We don't know. 3 words that taste like rust and betrayal when spoken by people who used to sound so sure. Science isn't failing, not exactly. It's just staring at the chalkboard the size of the sky, with no equations that make sense anymore. And you're watching it happen live, night after endless night. At first, the theories came in waves, tidal, confident, layered with graphs and acronyms. Day 1, possible eclipse by unknown body. Day 2, solar flare plus planetary shift. Day 3, radical magnetic pole reversal. But nothing held. The instruments didn't agree with the models didn't agree with reality. Observatories all over the world went dark, literally and intellectually. Telescopes still saw the stars, but not the sun. It wasn't blocked, it was absent, non-radiant. Scientists started breaking, not dramatically, not in fiery explosions or emotional breakdowns. No, they just got quieter. You'd see them on live streams and broadcasts, blinking too slowly, speaking with the kind of practiced calm that screams internal collapse. A woman from Tokyo University spent 27 minutes describing solar fusion before pausing mid-sentence and whispering, "But it doesn't matter, does it?" The stream cut out a moment later. No one's seen her since. And then came the conflicting camps. You start hearing the terms vanishing hypothesis, spontaneous collapse theory, dimensional occlusion or illusion event, synthetic horizon syndrome. They're all just labels for confusion. Each idea is backed by data that contradicts someone else's data. Every night, forums full of PhDs explode with arguments, then fall eerily silent. You imagine the scientists on the other side of the screen sitting in dark offices with bags under their eyes, wondering how the universe slipped their grasp while they were busy running simulations. The vanishing hypothesis suggests the sun still exists but has somehow decoupled from our visible universe. A concept that, according to the paper, challenges the limits of known physics and may indicate a loss of cosmological connectivity. Translation: the sun might be there, but we're not. Another team promises that the sun experienced a metaphysical implosion, which is exactly as bonkers as it sounds. It's not just dead, it opted out. What if, one physicist asks during an interview, our star reached some kind of cosmic threshold, like a bubble, popped into a lower energy state? He laughs after he says it. No one else does. Your favourite is the Dyson swarm theory. It's dramatic, cinematic. It suggests that an advanced civilization constructed a megastructure, an enormous shell or swarm of satellites that's completely enveloped the sun to harvest its energy. No light it gets out, none ever will. The whole idea used to live in sci-fi novels and space documentaries. Now it's being debated on CNN by a man with wild hair and a leather jacket who claims aliens are probably just using our sun as a backup charger. Historical fact: in the 1960s, a physicist named Freeman Dyson proposed that sufficiently advanced civilizations would inevitably build megastructures to capture the energy output of their stars. It was a purely speculative concept, a thought experiment. But in 2015, when astronomers observed strange fluctuations in the light from star KIC 84628552, nicknamed Tabby's star, some even wondered, briefly, if it might be evidence of such a structure. It wasn't, but the idea never really left the room. Now, it's back in full force. Reddit threads analyse light curves from solar observatories. People use Lego to build models of what a Dyson sphere might look like. Artists flood social media with hauntingly beautiful renderings of our sun, caged in massive, silent machinery surrounded by alien satellites. Some of them are so convincing you start to believe it's already happened. Quirky fact for you, one amateur engineer launches a weather balloon with a homemade mirror telescope and a big printed sign that says, "Hi, whoever is doing this." It ascends 30 kilometers and transmits a live stream the entire way. It gets millions of views, the balloon pops, the message goes unanswered, and then, of course, comes the backlash. Some scientists argue that throwing around megastructure theories is irresponsible, that it feeds into paranoia and distracts from serious cosmological inquiry. Others say we've crossed a threshold where serious no longer matters. Reality is rewriting the rules in real time. It's less about what's true and more about what helps people sleep at night. You check the official astronomy feeds once a day, or you used to. Now they mostly post errata. Correction. Retractions. One observatory issues a statement. We are no longer confident in the structure of our solar system. That's it. No follow-up. Just that. Amateur astronomers start making their own maps of the sky, new constellations, unofficial star names. It becomes a global hobby. We can't track the sun, one post reads, but we can reclaim the night. There's a viral movement called Re-Sky where people upload daily photos of the same patch of stars. Collages of these photos are stitched into massive time-lapse mosaics. You watch one, set to lo-fi beats. It shows Orion drifting slightly, day after day, until one of the stars pulses a strange green. It's not just us who noticed, someone comments. You close the tab, your sleep is broken now, not just restless, cracked. You dream of spirals, machinery humming behind the stars, structures bigger than anything human minds were meant to grasp. Sometimes you wake up gasping, convinced the sun is still there, just hidden behind a curtain you're not allowed to touch. You start thinking weird thoughts, like maybe we were never meant to know everything, that maybe we weren't supposed to look this far into the void, that there are limits to knowledge, and maybe we've found them. One morning, you still call it morning even though it's 2:45 a.m, you stand outside and stare up at the sky. A new star has appeared, or maybe it's a satellite. It blinks in perfect intervals. Every 7 seconds, you time it. It hasn't missed once. You call your friend, they don't see it. Later, that same star is gone. No trace, nothing. Science will never say magic. But you're starting to understand why so many others do. Darkness hates crops, and crops hate you right back. That's the lesson humanity learns the hard way about 3 weeks into the sun's disappearance. At first, the focus had been on survival. Heat, light, electricity, trying not to lose your mind. But as the reality stretches out, week to month, dark into darker, eyes turn to the food chain, and what they find is not promising. Farms that were once vast green waves of corn and wheat now look like the set of an apocalyptic western. Grey, brittle, motionless. Without sunlight, photosynthesis halts. Growth stops. Life doesn't pause, it evaporates. You're in a grocery store when the produce section finally goes full horror movie. Brown bananas, mould-flecked spinach sealed in plastic bags like tiny body bags, tomatoes that are somehow both shriveled and wet, and the smell rotten, fermented, like a compost pile in a locked car. You can't help but gag. A kid a few aisles over asks his mum what an apple used to taste like. You watch her pause for just a second too long. Agricultural industries collapse quickly and with very little ceremony. Every crop not grown under artificial light dies. No sun, no chlorophyll, no carbon capture. You'd think the greenhouses would hold out longer, but even they fold under the pressure. Energy costs skyrocket, water freezes in the irrigation systems, and fungus creeps in like opportunistic mould. People try to salvage what they can. Small-time growers rig their garages with UV grow lamps and aquariums converted into sprout farms. Your cousin turns her entire living room into a hydroponic lettuce jungle, complete with mirrors and humming pumps. She names the plants like pets. You don't ask questions. Cities begin to shift their infrastructure toward vertical farming, tall towers with artificial light arrays designed to simulate conditions no longer found on Earth. Most of these grow labs are built into old office buildings and malls. The irony's too rich. Corporate structures becoming literal salad factories. You volunteer in one for a week. You wear gloves, goggles, and a badge that says Sun Proxy Technician. You harvest arugula while someone plays ambient nature sounds through overhead speakers. Birds, bees, the occasional breeze. A soundtrack for a world that doesn't exist anymore. The historical equivalent? Try Iceland, 1783. After the eruption of Lakey, a volcanic event caused a cloud of sulfur dioxide to drift across Europe, dimming the sun and leading to failed harvests, mass famine, and economic collapse. Crops withered, livestock died, nearly a quarter of Iceland's population didn't make it, and that was just one volcano. You think about that every time you open a can of beans and realise you're 2 meals away from doing questionable things for freeze-dried strawberries. A quirky little modern twist. In Japan, vending machines start dispensing packets of genetically engineered microgreens. They grow in sealed pods with their own LEDs in a 3-day harvest cycle. People call them sun eggs. They become the new Tamagotchis, everyone raising their own salad babies. Social media is filled with progress photos. Day 1, my kale. Day 3. 3. I named him Gregory. You roll your eyes, but you buy one anyway. You name it Kevin. He dies after 5 days. You take it harder than expected. The biggest challenge isn't just growing food, it's keeping what's left from rotting. Refrigeration relies on electricity. Electricity relies on people not burning down substations because someone claimed they were hoarding light. You hear about entire grain silos going bad in Kansas, rice turning rancid in humid warehouses, dairy is done, meat is nearly gone. A viral post circulates. The vegans were right, but it's too late now. In your city, a rationing program begins. Barcode-based food tracking. Weekly delivery crates of government-issued nourishment pouches. They taste like chalk, but they keep you upright. Soy sludge with a hint of vanilla. Tuna mush sealed in silver tubes. You squeeze it onto crackers and pretend it's pâté. Everyone pretends, all the time now, but the fights start anyway. First, they're subtle. A woman refuses to share her flashlight at a communal grow station. A man hoards protein powder and claims it's for his emotional support ferret. Then they escalate. You read about food riots in Sao Paulo, armed garden thefts in Texas. A rooftop potato farm in New York gets raided by a group calling themselves the Night Harvest. They leave a message carved into the water tower. Only the plants shall survive. Debate now floods academic circles. Was it foolish for humanity to rely so heavily on sunlight for agriculture in the first place? Should we have built underground food systems decades ago? Should we have prepped for this, whatever this is, by building contingency farms on the moon, in the ocean, in bunkers like the one under Denver? Everyone suddenly becomes an expert in controlled environment agriculture. Sunless sustainability becomes the buzzword of the decade. You see a job ad that reads, "Wanted, night soil manager. Must be comfortable with compost. No light and sensitivity. Willing to work with genetically temperamental legumes." You stare at it too long. And in the midst of it all, there's a quiet, creeping guilt that starts to haunt people. The realization that most of the plants we took for granted, the fields of golden wheat, the orange groves, the vineyards, were living things. Now they're all dead. Not just dormant, gone. You pass a florist one night. The door is boarded up, the window fogged over. Inside, through a crack in the glass, you see one bouquet. Fake flowers lit by a solar-powered lamp still flickering weakly, as if protesting its own irony. People start to grieve their gardens. It sounds silly, but it's real. You hear about an elderly couple who held a funeral for their tomato plants. They buried them in the tiny frostbitten plots in their backyard and read a poem titled Ode to the Juicy Ones. There's a video of it. You cry harder than you should. Soon urban legends bloom. A rumoured seed vault deep in Norway that still has light. A billionaire's island greenhouse heated by geothermal vents and guarded by laser-wielding goats. A fungus that glows and feeds on old sunscreen. You don't believe most of it, but still you wonder. Every week your government sends out a green report. Lists of plant species that have adapted, are surviving, or have been bioengineered to thrive in dark conditions. The list is never long. Algae is always on top. Algae is the new gold. You try to grow mushrooms in your bathtub. You fail. Twice. Then, weirdly, succeed. The first harvest is small, pale, and tastes like soggy cardboard. But it's yours. You name them collectively the fun guys. You feel something like pride when you eat them, then a little sick, but still pride. One night, you dream of a sunflower, tall, proud, glowing like it's made of stained glass. You reach for it. The petals turn to ash. You wake up hungry. Children of the 100-watt bulb grow up in a world where daylight is something their parents describe like a lost city. They've never seen a sunrise, never squinted against the golden blaze of morning light, never chased their shadows across a lawn. Instead, they grow up under fluorescent suns and humming panels, plastic rectangles screwed into ceilings pulsing with cold, artificial brightness. The kind of light that never warms your skin, just illuminates it, like you're always under interrogation. You see it most in the toddlers. They stare at lamps like they're alive, draw pictures of glowing squares with smiley faces, not stars. Their cartoons don't have sunshine, they have extension cords and light bulbs. One preschool goes viral for a mural the kids made, a massive smiling refrigerator surrounded by flowers. When asked what it was, one child said, "That's where the happy comes from." You feel something twist in your chest. Every apartment, every home, every bunker is now a solar simulation machine. People run LED strips across ceilings, mount full-spectrum lamps in corners, install artificial sunrise clocks that slowly brighten over the course of 30 minutes to simulate what morning used to feel like. You have one yourself. It glows from soft orange to bright white and even emits birdsong, recorded, of course. Every time it chirps, you flinch. You never realise birds had rhythm, now it's all you hear, but the kids don't flinch. This is normal to them. Your neighbour's daughter, 5, maybe 6, likes to play with a flashlight in the hallway. She pretends it's a wand. One day you hear her say, "I'm making shadows, like in the stories." She pauses. "Mum says the sun used to do that, but only if you were good." Her voice is full of belief, not sadness. She doesn't miss the sun, she never knew it. The new generation has already adapted. Paediatricians call them lumen-dependent. Babies born under constant artificial lighting and raised without melatonin cycles. Their sleep patterns are bizarre. 3-hour naps at noon, hyperactive streaks at midnight. One doctor calls it circadian drift. Another just calls it growing up glow in the dark. It's a joke. Kind of. Here's your historical breadcrumb. During the Cold War, Soviet scientists experimented with children raised in underground facilities as part of long-term space survival studies. Artificial environments, no sun. The kids adapted, but strangely. They had higher stress levels, faster heartbeats, erratic hormonal cycles. Many developed a heightened fear of open spaces. Not darkness, openness. You think about that every time you step outside and look up at the sky that goes on forever and still gives you nothing. Fringe fact, there's a black market now for vitamin D. Yep, you heard that right. Pills, injectables, even shady UV lamps marketed as skin stimulants. Some are legit. Most are not. One guy gets arrested for selling vials of irradiated cooking oil as sunshine juice. People were injecting it into their necks. The internet calls them sun junkies. You just call them desperate. In schools, teachers try to keep things normal. They use old textbooks with yellow suns on the covers. They sing songs like "You Are My Sunshine" in slow, reverent tones. But kids ask questions, smart ones, like, if plants need the sun and we eat plants, well, do we still need the sun too? Or, is the sun hiding because it's mad at us? Or worse, when I grow up, will it come back for me? One Clark writes letters to the sun. You read one online. "Dear Sun, I hope you are okay. If you are lost, we can help you. We have lights now, you don't have to work so hard anymore. You cry harder at that than you did when your mushrooms died. Every month or so, your local rec centre hosts a glow night for the kids. They fill the gym with heat lamps, string lights, projection screens showing beach scenes, and spray the air with coconut-scented mist. It's cheesy. It's sad. It's also packed every time. Parents show up just to watch their kids run around under fake sunshine, pretending it's summer. You stand at the edge of the gym one night and watch a little boy lay down under a heat lamp, eyes closed, arms outstretched like he's absorbing something ancient. And then there are the lullabies. They've changed. Old songs, Twinkle Twinkle, You Are My Sunshine, and Mr. Sun have been rewritten. Slower tempos, minor keys. There's one new favourite called Glow Little Lantern, and it goes, "Glow, little lantern, in the night, make my pillow full of light, shine until I see the dream where sunshine falls on grass and stream." You hear a mother humming it in the apartment above yours. She sings it soft and low every night at 8 p.m. on the dot, like a ritual. You lie in bed sometimes and listen, not for the melody, but for the hope tucked inside it. Psychologists argue about the long-term effects of growing up sunless. Some claim this generation will be resilient, stronger, more adaptable, less dependent on outdated cycles of nature. Others warn of depression, developmental delay, cultural trauma. We are not designed, one article reads, to be nocturnal by force. That line haunts you. There are experiments now with colour therapy. Parents painting entire rooms in yellows and oranges, trying to trick infant brains into thinking it's morning. Others build sun simulators, with holograms of blue skies and distant clouds. They move slowly across the wall. A father in Minnesota programs one to include a tiny digital bird that flies across the image at 700 km daily. His daughter claps every time it appears. It's her sunrise, he says. Meanwhile, older kids start building mythologies. One group of teens in Portland starts a zine called The Flame Chasers. It's a mix of journal entries, comic art, and speculation about where the sun went and who will bring it back. They call themselves the Lightborn. Their motto? We remember heat. You download every issue. You wonder sometimes if kids will even believe the sun existed in 30 years. Or if it'll become a fable, something grown-ups talk about like dragons and giants. Once, there was a golden eye in the sky that watched us and warmed us and made trees grow tall. You imagine a child asking, "Did you really see it?" and someone replying, "Only in the old days, before the world turned inward." One night a friend's toddler asks you if the moon has a baby. You hesitate, then say yes. The stars are her children. The child smiles. Then maybe she's just busy being a mommy. And for a moment, you believe it. Zebra time. When clocks lied to us and no one could tell what hour it was by anything other than the blinking digits on a screen. When every number felt detached from the body it was supposed to guide, and no time of day felt real anymore. You'd wake up and it would say 7:15 a.m, but your eyes would scream at midnight and your body would file a complaint for jet lag. It wasn't just you, everyone was sliding off the rails of normalcy, slowly tumbling into temporal soup. At first, the idea was simple. Keep the old system going. Maintain schedules. Pretend the sun's absence was temporary. Alarm clocks still rang at 600 km. Businesses opened at 9 o'clock. School bells buzzed at 3:30. But within weeks, it all started to melt. People stopped sleeping at night, or stopped sleeping altogether. Streetlights burned constantly. Cafes had to scrap their morning menus because no one could agree on what morning was anymore. A man got into a fist fight over someone serving pancakes after lunch. Then came the clocks. Some companies started making them without numbers, just colour-coded light gradients, soft blue for rest, amber for focus, red for caution. Time as a mood, time as a vibe. Others went full retro, pushing sundials and analogue faces even though there was no sun to shadow, and no shadows to cast. A guy in Toronto made a clock that just said "now" in blinking neon. People bought it in droves. Your neighbour gave up entirely. She set every clock in her house to 4:44. Angel time, she called it. Always safe, always calm. She walks around with a pocket watch on a chain that doesn't tick, just glows. Meanwhile, in government buildings and emergency centres, the term zebra time was coined to describe what started happening across the globe. Black and white blocks of waking and sleeping, detached from natural rhythms. Instead of following a 24-hour clock, people began dividing their days into alternating lightless-dark cycles. Some 8 hours, some 6, some completely random. You might nap twice a day, or be awake for 30 hours and then sleep for 12. Your body became a rebel. Your mind went along for the ride. Here's the history echo. During World War II, submarine crews often worked in shifts that had no connection to the sun. 6 hours on, 6 off over and over again, trapped in metal tubes under the ocean. Some adapted. Others developed what was called clock drift, a kind of dissociation where the body forgets how to feel time. Sound familiar? Quirky fact for your insomnia toolkit. In the 1990s, researchers ran experiments where people lived in complete darkness for weeks to study natural circadian rhythms. Many drifted toward a 25-hour days. A few went to 28. One man started sleeping in 48-hour cycles. He lost the ability to count weeks. When asked how many days had passed, he said, "I think it's still Tuesday." Now, we're all him. Digital platforms scrambled to adjust. Calendar apps added mood-based scheduling. Alarms came with emotional check-ins. One app just gently whispered, "You're doing great," every 15 minutes, regardless of what was happening. People started wearing watches that didn't track time at all, just heart rate, hydration, and light exposure. Wearable wellness replaced wearable timekeeping. The open debate now spills between scientists and philosophers. One side argues we should anchor to something, keep a standard, maintain the grid, fight the void with math. The other says time is now a social construct made obsolete. If the sun isn't dictating time, then why should we? Why measure what no longer exists? Workplaces became chaos. You've got a friend who works night shift at what used to be a 24-hour pharmacy. She says they renamed their shifts from overnight and morning to Block 1 and Block 2. One day, she served a man who had just finished breakfast and was already ordering sleeping pills. "I'm in Block 4, he told her. "This is basically my midnight snack." Some communities formed sync zones, neighbourhoods that agreed to live on the same block schedule. They held vote-ins. Some went with classic 9 to 5, others tried the 3-block method. 6 hours for activity, 6 for rest, repeated twice per cycle. One town voted for a 10-on, 10-off rhythm. It failed within a week because no one could agree when to open the grocery store. You live somewhere less organised. Your building is chaos. Upstairs, someone blasts techno at 2 a.m. because that's their gym hour now. Down the hall, a guy bakes bread every 10 hours and knocks on doors offering wake-up loaves. The smell is divine. The logic, incomprehensible. Time-based greetings have died. No one says good morning anymore. You say hey. You say still awake. Or just grunt and nod. Texts are time-stamped, sure, but everyone ignores it. Sorry for the late message is gone. So is early and late. Just now, just here. You start keeping your own log scribbled in a notebook, because typing feels too formal. You write things like, Block 3, had soup, felt like crying for no reason. Block 6, watched fake sunrise, it looked tired. Block 9, forgot what Thursday is, or was. Sleep becomes a bargaining chip. Some people sell sleep support boxes, weighted blankets, lavender spray, light masks, blackout curtains, white noise machines. Others go full tech, audio-guided nap simulations with synchronized vibrations. You try one. It tells you to breathe like a cat. You fall asleep halfway through. You wake up with no idea where you are. The global economy starts to warp under it. Stock exchanges desynchronize. Planes miss coordination windows. Global calls become nearly impossible. Time zones collapse. Jet lag becomes Earth lag. International businesses implement something called Lunar Hour as a universal placeholder. It doesn't work. You try to meet a friend at a cafe. You both arrive 5 hours apart. Eventually, your body starts picking its own time. Not based on clocks. Based on internal cues. You start sleeping when your limbs feel heavy, eating when your teeth ache, crying when your chest tightens. Emotion becomes your timekeeper. You track hours by the weight of your moods. And somewhere in the world, the last official time server goes dark. No more global synchronization. No one notices until an old NASA satellite tries to phone home and gets no answer. His timestamp reads 00,000. The beginning again. You take down the wall clock in your apartment, replace it with a circle of candles you light one by one clockwise. When they're all burned out, you sleep. It feels better, honest, and in the end time keeps happening, even if no one measures it. Even in darkness, things still grow old. How do you dream in permanite? The question starts as a whisper in sleep clinics and Reddit forums, and then blooms into something larger. Scientific papers, psychology conferences, late-night podcasts recorded at 3 km, when even the hosts sound like they've forgotten what a circadian rhythm ever was. Sleep was already a delicate truce between your mind and the world. But now, with no sunlight to keep score, dreams have broken loose from their leashes. They roam wider, wilder. Sometimes they don't even wait for sleep. You start to notice it yourself. Your dreams aren't right anymore. Not nightmares, not exactly. They're too soft for terror, too strange for comfort. One night you're walking across a field made of television screens. Each one shows a version of the sun, cartoon, blazing eclipse, distant, but none of them are warm. Another time you dream of a clock with no hands, ticking anyway, whispering names you don't recognize. You wake up sweating, tangled in blankets, your mouth full of static. You're not alone. Across the world, reports Spike, people dream of suns that stare back, or oceans made of melted snow, and others dream of being trapped inside light bulbs. Some wake up convinced they've slept for years. Others think they never slept at all. One woman in Prague claims she hasn't dreamed since the day the sun vanished. Just blankness, she says, blinking slowly into the camera, like I'm not allowed anymore. Sleep clinics, once places of quiet tests and CPAP machines, have become fortresses. People line up at the doors begging for rest. Inside, overworked staff track patients through endless nights of fragmented REM cycles and dream mapping. A new diagnosis emerges: dream drift disorder, a condition marked by vivid, looping dreams and difficulty discerning memory from an imagination. The line between waking and sleeping frays like a cheap rug. Historical detour? In ancient Rome, dreams were believed to be messages from the gods, and during solar eclipses, dream interpretations surged. One record from 93 BC describes a series of nightmares by a senator who saw the sun eaten by a black snake. It was considered an omen, a bad one. Rome didn't fall that year, but the senator did. He drowned in his bath 2 days later. Back in the now, lucid dreaming becomes the trend. People try to take control inside the chaos. There are guides, audio tutorials, apps that vibrate gently when you're slipping into RM, but it's harder than it sounds. The dreams fight back. Some users report dreamscapes that won't be controlled. One guy posts a terrifying thread describing a recurring figure, a tall, faceless man in a yellow tie who appears in everyone's dreams and speaks in reverse. He told me the sun is dreaming of us, the man writes. The replies are chilling. Dozens of people describing the same figure, the same words. And then there's the fringe. A cult called the Sleepless Covenant claims that dreams are doorways, and the lack of sunlight is an invitation to step through. They practice extreme sleep deprivation, trying to enter a state called waking vision. Their compound is dimly lit and full of half-conscious members scribbling in notebooks. One reporter visits. She never publishes the piece. But someone leaks her footage, drawings of suns with mouths, forests made of teeth, and a strange phrase repeated over and over: the night knows our names. Quirky fact, in 2008, a Canadian study used total darkness to explore dream recall. Participants were kept in blacked-out rooms for weeks. They reported vivid dreams, many about light. One man described giving birth to a flashlight. Now, that study's become required reading for every sleep researcher on Earth. Its lead author now hosts a live-streamed support group called Dreams Are Still Ours. You tune in sometimes, you don't participate, but hearing other people talk about the shape of their dreams feels like a lifeline. Then comes the pill. A pharmaceutical company releases Lucidia, a pill marketed to synchronize internal light perception. It's part melatonin, part something no one quite understands. Users claim it lets them see brightness again inside their dreams. Sales skyrocket. Side effects include hallucinations, memory fragmentation, and light sensitivity. People take it anyway. Desperation is the new currency. One night you take half a tablet, just to see, just to sleep like you used to. That night you dream of a field of sunflowers, all grey. Each one turns toward you, not the sky. Their faces look like yours. They start humming. You wake up in tears. You begin writing your dreams down. A journal leather-bound with a sun stamped into the cover like some cruel joke. The pages fill full fast. Dreams bleed together. In one, you talk to a lamppost. In another, you open your closet and find a bright hallway that stretches into space. In another, the sky falls like a sheet, and you're underneath, waiting for the fold. People start comparing notes. A whole subreddit emerges. IL Shadow Dreams. They share sketches, dream fragments, coordinates, keywords. Someone builds a dream map, an interconnected world of recurring places described by thousands of people. One location gets mentioned over and over, the Lumen Stair, a staircase made of gold glowing, ascending into a black sky. Hundreds claim to have climbed it in their sleep. Most say they never reached the top. Scientists try to explain it. Shared cultural narrative, dream suggestion, digital psychosis. But privately you know they're scared. Not of the dreams, but of how many people are having the same ones. Open debate, whether the absence of solar rhythms has fundamentally altered consciousness. A team at a neuroscience lab suggests our dream cycles were always aligned to the sun's electromagnetic activity, that without it, the brain searches for something to replace it. A new rhythm, a new pulse. The mind abhors a vacuum, one paper says. When light leaves, the imagination floods in. You read that line 10 times, you start lighting a candle before bed. Not for heat, for dreams, just a little glow to hold the dark at bay. You stare into it, not thinking, just feeling. Some nights you see things move in the flame. Not reflections, just shapes. Shifting. As if your brain is trying to find light anywhere it can, even in shadows. Then one morning, if it even is morning, you open your eyes and feel warmth. You sit up fast, heart pounding. Your room is bathed in soft gold, you hold your breath. It's just your lamp. Your eyes adjusting late. Still for that one perfect second you think the sun is back. You lie back down and try to dream it again. The polar cities actually win. It's the kind of sentence no one expected to say. Not climatologists, not survivalists, certainly not the people who used to joke that you'd have to be insane to live year-round in Barrow or Nuuk or Longyearbyen. But now somehow the frozen places have become the hot ticket. Or, well, the less freezing ticket. Because unlike everyone else, the people up there already knew how to survive in long, sunless stretches. They were used to the dark, they were trained for it. The pivot happens fast. Within weeks of the sun's disappearance, whispers spread through news articles and forums. Arctic infrastructure is holding. Svalbard's grid still stable. Greenland's tunnels warmer than Midwest homes, and then louder. Come north, if you can make it. You think it's a joke at first, until you start seeing caravans, snowmobiles dragging sleds packed with suitcases, homemade tracked vehicles, even reindeer-led sleighs rigged with solar panels that are now just dead weight. Frozen highways become rivers of blinking taillights, all pointing toward places that used to be inhospitable, but are now just less ruined. You know a guy who makes it to Iceland, gets there on a converted fishing boat surviving off sardines and hope, says Reykjavik was weirdly quiet when they arrived, calm, like the city had decided not to panic with the rest of the planet. People were wrapped in thermal layers and walking their dogs like nothing was wrong. We've always had weird winters, someone told him. This is just one that overstayed its welcome. These cities, built for polar night, outfitted with insulated buildings, underground tunnels, efficient heat systems, they already had the tools the rest of the world was scrambling to invent. In Tromsø, Norway, the old emergency lighting systems flick on like they were waiting for this. In Murmansk, Russia, the reactor-powered grid keeps humming, hot water still flowing to steel buildings with triple-pane windows. They don't need sunlight. They've already learned to live without it for months. Now they just have to scale up. And scale they do. Within 2 months, Arctic towns start swelling. Populations double, then triple. Entire settlements get swallowed by caravans of exhausted travellers. Tents go up. Refugee cities made of geodesic domes, yurts, insulated cubes, emergency prefab housing, dropped in by drones from desperate governments. You see footage of a train rolling into a Finnish outpost, every window fogged with breath. People cheer as it slows. A child waves a sock puppet out the window. One of your favourite reports comes from a journalist embedded in a community called Aurora Hollow, technically an old mining base, now repurposed into a living archive and energy lab. The people there have become strange and wonderful. They run experimental saunas that double as greenhouses. They raise chickens indoors with LED circadian bulbs and classical music. They've developed something called thermal graffiti, spray-painted shapes that glow when heated. They host evening salons where scientists and artists sip rehydrated wine and discuss what the sun meant as though it's an extinct language. Here's your historical echo. During the Cold War, polar regions were heavily studied for extreme environment living. Scientists lived in ice bases like Halisid 6 and Vostok Station, studying how isolation and darkness impacted mental health. They recorded dreams, behaviour shifts, vitamin D levels, even how people talk to plants. The data was archived, mostly ignored, until now. Now it's the foundation of every How Not to Go Insane in a Frozen Hellscape manual being passed around by survivors. The quirky thing, some of these places thrive, creativity spikes in the Arctic. With crops dead and economies frozen, people pivot into expression. Longyearbyen opens a cinema that runs 24 hours a day, because why not? Time is broken. Inside, people watch old, sun-soaked films like La La Land and The Beach, weeping softly. An art collective in Canada makes sculptures from frozen fog, illuminated by coloured lights. like ghosts learning to dance. A Swedish town opens a poetry hotline, leave a message with your voice, get a poem in return, you try it. The response you get begins with, "The sun is a rumour your skin remembers." The open debate, whether these new polar hubs should become the next capitals, if humanity should simply pack up and go north for good. It sparks arguments in news feeds, awkward debates in survivor radio broadcasts. Some say it's the only logical choice, to follow the warmth of infrastructure. Others argue it's a death spiral. What happens when the food runs out up there too, they ask? What happens when the ice gives way? No one has good answers. But then again, no one has good questions anymore either. A new political movement emerges. The Nocturnal republics, Arctic settlements that declare themselves independent states of survival. Their laws are simple: share warmth, speak gently, ration light. Flags are handmade, currencies are based on therms and preserved calories. People trade solar batteries for hugs. One city declares all its streets to be named after constellations. Meet me at the corner of Orion and Andromeda. It sounds poetic. You want to believe in it. You know someone who made it to Kiruna. They send you a photo once a week, always the same angle, out a frost-covered window toward a street lamp that glows pale gold through the snow. In every shot there's someone walking, bundled, quiet, determined. Sometimes it's a child pulling a sled, sometimes an old man with skis slung over his back. No chaos, just motion, endurance. Back where you are, people start copying the polar playbook. Insulated tunnels between buildings, shared thermal banks, communal light rooms, big spaces filled with sun lamps and beanbags, where people lie down fully clothed and pretend it's July. It works, kind of. At least enough to keep people from crying in public. You spend one night watching a live stream from a place called Novaya Zarya. It's a music show, broadcast from what used to be a polar research station. They've turned it into a venue called The Core. Inside it's candlelit. People wear silver coats and pass around mugs of something hot. The band plays a song called Lights in the Ice. The chorus goes, "We don't need your fireball, we made our own dawn, beneath the endless ceiling we sing until it's gone." You watch until the feed cuts, you realise you've been smiling. Then you go outside, just for a second. It's still cold, still dull dark. But you think, maybe, just maybe, the people up there are right. If you can't follow the sun, you follow those who've already lived without it. One bird still sang. You wouldn't have believed it if you hadn't heard it yourself. That brittle trill slicing through the frozen air like a ribbon of light. Brief, almost accidental. But it was real. You were standing in the alley behind your apartment, dumping out the last of your spoiled pantry mushrooms when it happened. 3 soft notes. A pause. Then 2 more. Higher. Urgent. You froze, a garbage bag still in your hand, your breath turning to mist as you turned your head and scanned the sky. Nothing. No fluttering. No silhouette. Just the sound again, faint and impossible. You stood there for 15 minutes, neck craned, until your fingers went numb. And even though you never saw it, you knew, somewhere nearby, against all odds, the bird was still alive, and singing, in this sunless world where the sky had been silent for months. It was like hearing the voice of a god. Later that night, you brought it up in a forum, just a casual post. Heard a bird today, is that normal? Within hours, there were hundreds of replies. People all over the world reporting similar events. Solitary birds heard in the dark. Always brief. Always alone. Someone in Scotland claimed they saw a blackbird nesting inside an old traffic light. Another posted a shaky video of a feathered shape hopping across snow, chirping into the blue glow of a TV left on in the window. Someone in Alaska shared audio. A crisp, clear whistle echoing off the ice. That's when the theories started. The running assumption had always been that most birds had either died or migrated, though where no one could say. Without sunlight, migration patterns collapsed. Seasons blurred, insects disappeared. Trees dropped their leaves and never grew them back. Nesting sites were left behind like ancient ruins. Ornithologists had gone quiet. Until now. A group of researchers in Finland released a statement. Corvids appear to be adapting to sunless conditions. Early data suggests scavenging behaviour and urban roosting are increasing. One magpie was observed mimicking human speech in complete darkness. The last line read like fiction, but you knew better than to doubt anything anymore. You did some digging. Apparently certain species were surviving, barely. Crows, ravens, pigeons, of course. But it was the songbirds that puzzled everyone. They weren't just alive, they were singing. Not often, not like before, but enough to be noticed. Enough to remind you of something lost. A fringe researcher from New Zealand published a paper claiming that these birds were navigating not by sun or stars, but by memory and vibration. He called them the tonal cartographers of a broken scheme plane. His peers mocked him. You downloaded the PDF anyway. Historical flashback. During the Mount Tambora eruption of 1815, when ash blotted out the sun and temperatures dropped worldwide, naturalists reported an eerie silence from the animal world. Birds vanished, insects died. But one traveller in Switzerland claimed to have heard a single thrush singing every morning right at dawn, despite the fact that there was no dawn. He called it a voice insisting against the void. You started listening for your own again. You made it part of your ritual. At least once a day, though day meant nothing, you'd open your window, wrap yourself in blankets and sit in the cold. Waiting. You never heard the same call twice, just that one time, but other people claimed to hear it regularly. One guy swore a robin visited his balcony every week at the same time, pecking at the same spot on his railing. He started leaving breadcrumbs. The bird kept coming. Soon a whole online community formed around it. The Birders of the Dark. They posted blurry photos, audio clips, poems. Some wrote songs, others built feeders lit with low-power LEDs. Maybe they're singing to the light, one user said. Any light. Quirky fact, a startup in Germany begins marketing avian ambient soundtracks, loops of digitally enhanced bird calls meant to simulate pre-collapse mornings. They're sold as stress relief tools. The tracks are named things like Dawn 1.0, Golden Wood, and Sunrise Simulator Deluxe. You try one while washing dishes. It makes you cry. You can't explain why. But the real story is in the children. They start drawing birds everywhere. At first, it's just doodles on school worksheets. Little stick-winged creatures with music notes hovering over their heads, then murals, then tattoos. A teacher in Quebec reports that 70% of her students included birds in their short stories, often as guides or messengers. In one tale, a sparrow carries a stolen sun across the sea to plant it in someone's heart. A trend catches on. Feather shrines. Small altars made from things scavenged in the dark. Bottle cap, string, bits of cloth, and always one feather at the centre. No one knows where it started, but now people leave them everywhere. Bus stops, windowsills, hospital lobbies. One woman in Brooklyn builds a 7-foot sculpture of a winged bird made entirely from flashlight parts. She names it Echo. It ends up on the news. Open scholarly debate. Whether birdsong in darkness is evolution, instinct, or something stranger. One camp says these are just survivors, holding on to old behaviours until extinction. Another argues they're adapting, using sound to map space, signal hope, or call out for others in a world where visual cues are dead. A smaller, quieter faction believes the songs are messages, not to each other, but to us. You don't know what to believe. One evening you sit on your fire escape wrapped in 2 coats, sipping lukewarm tea, when you hear it again. A single note, then 3, delicate, rising. You hold your breath. There, perched on the skeletal branch of a frozen tree across the alley, is the smallest thing you've seen in months. Round, feathered, bright eyes scanning the air. It opens its beak and sings again, short and high. It's not a performance, it's not for you, it's just a sound, a thread, a defiance. And for the first time in weeks, you feel something unfamiliar crack your chest open. Hope. Not because you think everything's going to be okay, but because even now something small remembers the way morning used to feel. The unseeable sky becomes its own kind of obsession. Not the darkness exactly, you're used to that by now, but the strange unnatural clarity of it. A kind of cold high-definition cosmos that doesn't blink, doesn't breathe, doesn't move the way you remember. It just hangs, too still, too perfect. You look up and feel like you're staring at wallpaper stretched over a dome. Beautiful, vast, a little bit wrong. You remember the old sky being softer, blurred by sunlight and city glow. The stars twinkled, faint and far, like secrets barely whispered. But now, they blaze, they stab. The constellations don't gently suggest themselves. They announce their presence like actors on a stage. Orion isn't just a shape anymore, he's a diagram. Cassiopeia could cut glass. You find yourself squinting, not because it's dim, but because it's too much. Astronomers call it the new transparency. Without solar interference, atmospheric haze, or human light pollution, Earth's night sky has become a portal to the universe in terrifying detail. You can see things now, galaxies, pulsars, dense star clusters, that used to require advanced telescopes. One teenager in Utah points a half-broken DSLR at the sky and accidentally captures a nebula in full bloom. The image goes viral. He titles it "Look What's Always Been There." But with that clarity comes a sense of unease. It's like you're turning on all the lights in a haunted house. You want to see, but once you do, you can't pretend anymore. People start reporting changes in the stars, slight shifts, new patterns, constellations that seem to morph. A group of hobbyists in Chile compiles time-lapse photos showing the Southern Cross drifting 3 degrees off its ancient mark. Others confirm it. Then more anomalies. One of the stars in Ursa Major grows noticeably brighter. A faint red glow appears near Vega. A small patch of sky near Lyra goes missing, like someone took an eraser to the stars. The forums light up. Threads titled "The Sky is Glitching and Are We Still in the Universe?" fill with images, shaky comparisons, blinking gifs. People argue, hard. Some say it's tectonic shifts in the crust, subtle movements of the observer's platform. Others blame retinal damage from staring into artificial light too long. But deep down, most people feel what you do, that something about the sky is off. Then comes the eye. It begins as a joke, like most horror does. A simple patterns people keep seeing. One large circle surrounded by smaller ones with the radial lines like lashes. It shows up in star maps, in dream journals, in the frost on your window. You see it once, idly tracing the constellations from your balcony. It's just a trick of the stars, you tell yourself, an asterism, random chance. But then someone points a high-powered telescope at the centre of the pattern and finds something that shouldn't be there. Not a star, not a planet, not even a black hole, just absence. An area of the sky where no light returns, no radiation, no gravitational signature. A dark sphere nestled among the stars, detectable only by what it fails to be. A celestial blind spot, one astrophysicist says on a podcast. Another calls it the null. A third just sighs into the microphone and says, "It's blinking." Because that's the weirdest part. Every 11 hours and 42 minutes, something flickers in that blank patch of space. Not light, but anti-light. A pulse of inverted energy, measurable only with instruments, but somehow felt. The first time you're awake for it, you shiver uncontrollably and drop your coffee mug without realizing. The second time your neighbor's dog howls until its voice goes raw, you start logging them. 3:16 a.m., 3:28 p.m., 3:40 a.m. The intervals stay exact. People begin organizing blink watches, gatherings where groups lie on rooftops, eyes wide, waiting to feel the pulse. Some claim it causes hallucinations, others say it induces lucid dreaming. One man swears he heard a voice say, "Almost there," no one's sure if he was asleep. Historical side note, in 1977, a radio telescope in Ohio picked up a one-time signal that lasted 72 seconds. No known origin. The scientist who found it circled it on the printout and wrote one word, "Wow." It's still debated today. That's what this feels like, but scaled up to cosmic proportions and maybe personal. The quirky twist? A woman in Wales starts painting portraits of the eye in watercolour, claiming she's seen it in her dreams since childhood. Her artwork is haunting, giant black discs surrounded by thorny halos of white and silver. One of her pieces sells for $800,000 to a tech billionaire who insists it matches something his lab picked up before the sun blinked out. The open scientific debate now isn't what the eye is, but who discovered it first. Different observatories stake their claims, arguing over timestamps and data trails. Some even fight over naming rights. The Malkov Void, the Oculon, Observation 0, but the public sticks with the simplest name, the eye. It's clean, terrifying, descriptive. You start noticing it in your dreams. Not always directly, sometimes it's just a dark shape outside the window, or a blindfold over the sky. Once you dreamed your ceiling had cracks shaped like the eye. Another time you looked into a mirror and saw it inside your pupils. You stop sleeping well. You stop looking up. And yet, part of you still checks the sky every morning, just to be sure it's still there. The eye, the stars, the ache of the unknown pressing down on your chest like frost on glass. You hold your breath for the blink, that 11-hour pulse. and every time it comes, something inside you clenches. Not out of fear exactly, out of recognition. It's not that the sky has changed, it's that you're finally seeing it the way it always was. And maybe, just maybe, it sees you too. The psych ward on the ISS was never supposed to exist. Not officially, not in any mission plans, public health statements, or space agency protocols, but it exists all the same. A makeshift module at the far end of the International Space Station, stripped of hardware and converted into a place where astronauts can sit and breathe very slowly, and try to stop seeing things they shouldn't be seeing. It's just a repurposed storage room, lined with handholds and soundproof panels, but lately it's been in use almost every day. When the sun vanished from Earth's skies, it was the astronauts aboard the ISS who noticed it first. They radioed it in calmly at first, routine reporting. We're no longer seeing direct solar exposure from port side, battery recharge cycles are irregular, awaiting confirmation from ground. Then came the confusion, the fear, then silence, because no one down below could explain what was happening either. All they knew was that the sun had gone black and somehow the station was still in orbit, still floating, still circling an Earth that no longer rotated into day. You read the transcripts, released weeks after the event. The voices are tight, controlled, but not immune. One crew member says, "The Earth looks asleep." Another asks, "Is it just us, or is the whole planet sighing?" They stopped seeing sunrises and sunsets from the cupola module. Just an endless ribbon of cold black stars. The station's panels still gathered something, some faint residue of solar energy, but it was wrong, mismatched wavelengths, decaying light curves. The data didn't line up. Then the dreams began. Not the slow drifting kind you get when you float for weeks in zero gravity. Not even the Earth-longing hallucinations that old astronauts used to call planet sickness. These were worse, shared, coordinated. Several crew members began reporting the same dream. A golden corridor stretching through a black void, pulsing like a heartbeat. At the end, a door. The door never opened. But they all described it the same way. Metal, pulsing and watching back. One cosmonaut requested early sedation. Another began humming constantly, an old folk song no one could identify in a language none of them spoke. He didn't stop for 6 hours. When asked why, he said, "The hum helps me stay where I am." He was placed in the psych room after he tried to open an airlock mid-sleepwalk. He claimed he saw the sun smiling at him. Here's a grim historical echo. During long-haul space simulations in the 60s, isolation tests revealed something called dark mirroring. Test subjects, deprived of natural light and trapped in enclosed environments, began perceiving an extra presence in the room, a silent observer who mirrored their movements, always out of view. NASA buried the reports, said they were the result of oxygen irregularities. Now every astronaut knows the term. They call it the third. Up in orbit, things spiral. The crew stops trusting their clocks. Internal lighting malfunctions, the concept of day shift and night shift breaks entirely. Ground control sends new light synchronization programs. Nothing works. One American astronaut, the youngest aboard, starts filming a diary. His final entry, still up on the dark web, shows him staring into the camera, with eyes rimmed red, whispering, "It's not that the sun is gone, it's just that we're on the wrong side now." After that, the feed cuts out for a full day. Quirky fact? The ISS has an onboard musical library, a small but curated collection of songs chosen to calm the crew and maintain morale. There's a file called sunrise.wav, a soundscape meant to simulate the feeling of dawn rising over Earth. Since the event, the file has glitched. Every time it's played, a new sound appears layered beneath it. A rhythmic knocking, soft, deliberate. One tech described it as a heartbeat trapped in metal. Others call it coincidence. A glitch. But no one plays the file anymore. Eventually, half the crew is rotated back to Earth, quietly, urgently, like something has gone sour in the station's air. The others stay. They're scientists, observers. They file daily reports, but now they're full of symbols, metaphors, half-finished thoughts. One update reads, "The stars are too close together. They know we're watching." Another simply says, "Don't blink during the 11:42. The 11:42. Yes, even up there they feel it. The pulse, that strange regular flicker from the eye's location, observable even through advanced shielding. The station's sensors pick it up as a minor shift in gravitational harmonics, like the fabric of space itself briefly inhales. One of the crew members describes it like this: "It's as if the universe briefly checks in." Another says, "I can hear it in my bones." Open scholarly debate whether extended exposure to uninterrupted cosmic darkness can create hallucinations based on electromagnetic imprinting, or whether the mind, when freed from planetary limitations, sunlight, atmosphere, circadian anchors, begins to perceive a broader frequency. Maybe, one paper suggests, space isn't silent at all. Maybe we're just finally listening. The psych ward stays busy. Down on Earth, people argue whether the crew is fit to remain in orbit. Some demand their return, others think they've gone too far, crossed some line of perception that makes them dangerous. The European Space Agency cuts its feed. NASA denies any issue. Russia goes quiet entirely. You follow a live stream run by an amateur astronomer in New Zealand. He records the station's orbital path, tracks it like a moth. Then one night the ISS vanishes from view, mid-path, mid-sky. No clouds, no weather, just gone. The next transmission from the crew is audio only. A man's voice whispering, "The sun is behind the door, we're knocking." Then static. Nothing since. You think about them often. The ones up there, adrift above a planet with no sun, looking down at a sleeping Earth and up at a sky that sees too much. You imagine them floating in their quiet chamber, untethered from time, waiting for something to answer. Or worse, realizing something already has. The UN declares a global bedtime, and it goes about as well as you'd expect. They call it Coordinated Human Rhythmic Synchronization Protocol, a name so bureaucratically awful it makes your teeth itch, but the news outlets immediately dub it the sleep mandate. The premise? Simple, desperate, wildly optimistic. If the world can't follow the sun anymore, then maybe we can fake it, together. Everyone, everywhere, will observe the same standardized 8-hour night block, no matter what time zone, hemisphere, or schedule you were used to before the sky turned traitor. Bedtime at 2300 UTC, wake at 700, obey the clock, not the sky. The announcement comes via a grim-faced UN representative standing beneath an LED-lit mural of a rising sun. You can practically hear the collective eye-roll ripple across the planet. In these unprecedented times, she says, synchronization may be the most powerful tool we have left to preserve sanity, wantity, and human resilience. She doesn't blink enough. You don't trust people who stop blinking. The rollout begins with a bang, or rather, a lullaby. Literally. Every major streaming platform gets a mandatory update. At the stroke of 2300 UTC, a calm, somber lullaby begins to play on every connected device. It's a minimalist piano track with faint ocean sounds and a voice whispering phrases like, "Time to close your eyes," and "The world sleeps with you, sinew." It's oddly effective, terrifyingly soothing. You find yourself lying in popwork in bed, not because you're tired, but because everyone else is too. That first night, the world tries. Lights go out in city after city, air traffic slows, trains halt, even fast food chains close their drive-thrus. The sleep mandate becomes the most ambitious synchronized moment in human history. Social media is flooded with images, families in matching pajamas, corporations bragging about compliance, astronauts, well, the ones who are still on Earth, posing in eye masks and zero-gravity sleeping bags. Hashtags explode, #sleep together, #night united, #world nap. Someone makes a meme of the Earth tucking itself into a blanket made of clouds. You chuckle, then double bolt your door. But the illusion doesn't last. By day 4, people are already slipping. Reports come in of mandate breakers, folks refusing to sleep on schedule. Some do it out of stubbornness, others simply can't. Their bodies refuse the rhythm. Sleep won't come just because a clock tells it to. A man in Istanbul posts a video of himself lying awake, eyes bloodshot, muttering, "The more they ask, the harder it is." It goes viral. Sleep clinics are overwhelmed. Black market sunsync pills pop up online. Unregulated chemical cocktails promising to reset your sleep cycle instantly. Most of them are garbage. One batch causes vivid hallucinations of clocks melting. Another induces sleep, yes, but only for 18 hours straight. A guy wakes up with no idea what year it is. His family thinks he's faking. Here's your historical touchstone. During the French Revolution, There was a brief period where the government tried to enforce a 10-day week and decimal time. Clocks with 10 hours, each with 100 minutes. It failed miserably. No one wanted to eat lunch at third decaminate. Now, we're living that chaos all over again. Only this time it's at night, and no one's laughing. The mandate also fractures along cultural and class lines. Wealthy neighbourhoods install sleep pods, light-dampening drapes, ambient temperature control systems that purr like lullabies. Meanwhile, poorer districts are stuck with flickering streetlights and thin walls. You hear your upstairs neighbour's lullaby soundtrack blaring through the ceiling every night, soothing piano again and again, until it starts sounding like a threat. Workplaces try to follow suit. Meetings shift. School schedules flip. Businesses adjust their hours to align with the artificial day-night cycle, but it only works for so long. You show up at a grocery store and it's closed, not because it's 2 a.m, but because it's night block. You sit on the curb eating crackers out of your pocket. Quirky detail: one rogue city, unspecified location rumoured to be somewhere in northern Canada, bans the mandate entirely and reinvents itself as a 24-hour wake town. Their motto: we don't sleep on a schedule, we sleep on purpose. They livestream everything: mayor's speeches, coffee brewing, local teens reciting slam poetry at 4 a.m. It's like a weird noir sitcom with frostbite. Their followers multiply. Then come the Nightwalkers. Not zombies, not cultists, just people who give up trying. They stop adhering to any sleep cycle, drift from place to place, awake during everyone else's night. Cities begin to report sudden, stolent crowds roaming the streets during the mandate hours, staring, pacing, whispering. Some wear headlamps, others simply move by instinct. You see one on your street one night, slow, deliberate, eyes wide open. You don't know whether to wave or hide. Scholarly debate rages. Is the sleep mandate helping or harming? Psychologists argue that even artificial structure provides mental stability in chaos. Others counter that forced synchronization ignores the body's natural rhythms and causes long-term cognitive stress. Some neuroscientist on a podcast says it's like forcing a plant to bloom at night by yelling at it. You read that line twice. At a certain point, compliance numbers stop being released. The lullaby keeps playing nightly, but no one tracks who listens anymore. People start remixing it into EDM tracks. You hear a trap version blaring from a car at 2 a.m. You hate how catchy it is. Eventually, your own sleep splits in two. You stop fighting it. A nap in the morning. A stretch of dreamless unconsciousness sometime after what used to be lunch. You build your own schedule based on when the dreams stop getting weird. One long sleep, two short ones. No rules, just relief. You call them shadow naps, your friend calls them dream dodges. No one sleeps the same anymore. You take the batteries out of your old alarm clock, it never helped anyway, and one night, as the 2300 lullaby begins to play again, you lie in bed and listen. The piano notes drift like smoke. The voice says, "Sleep is the shadow of light." You stare at the ceiling wide awake, wondering if anything ever really sleeps again. Operation Sun Balloon begins the way all terrible ideas do, confidently, with good lighting and a very expensive press conference. The phrase is delivered by a clean-shaven government spokesperson wearing a parka that's clearly never seen real cold. "We are launching a bold international collaboration," he says, gesturing toward a digital rendering of what looks like the world's largest light bulb floating in low orbit. The room erupts in applause. The internet reacts with an immediate disbelief. And you? You laugh so hard you nearly drop your soup. Here's the premise. If the sun won't shine on Earth anymore, Earth will shine on itself. Giant helium-filled balloons, each carrying a fusion-powered artificial light array, will be launched into orbit. Once deployed, they'll function as orbital reflectors, a synthetic sun meant to bathe the Earth in at least a simulation of natural light. The science behind it is sketchy, rushed, and deeply optimistic. But after months of dark, people are ready to believe in anything with the word sun in it. The official project name is Lunar, an acronym nobody bothers to decode because the marketing works too well. There are branded hats, educational animations, and a now famous jingle that sounds like it belongs in a cereal commercial. Lunar, lighting the world with love. The first balloon is scheduled for launch from Kazakhstan. The rocket is named Helios 1. The goal? Reflect enough light to simulate 3% of regular daylight over the European continent for 6 hours per day. A warm, gentle glow, a fake dawn. The launch is broadcast globally. You gather with neighbours in the stairwell. A few battery-powered TVs stacked on crates. Popcorn in vacuum-sealed bags. Everyone holds their breath as the rocket lifts off, clean, smooth, fiery. For a few beautiful seconds you feel the old awe crackle in your bones. That tight human thrill at seeing fire rise into a sky that's swallowed every promise. And then it works, sort of. 48 hours later, at precisely the predicted time, the balloon activates. A bloom of golden light washes across the night sky like spilled honey. It's not blinding, not even bright enough to cast shadows, but it's there. A soft shimmer that brushes the tops of buildings and makes wet pavement glisten like old movie sets. For 6 hours, people weep openly. They kiss, they sing. One man stands shirtless on his balcony screaming, "I remember this," over and over. But then comes the catch. The balloon's orbit degrades quickly. It dips too low, loses pressure, and begins to spin. The light flickers, then pulses, then stutters like a dying eye. What was warm becomes uncanny. Flickering shadows stretch across entire cities. Dogs howl. Infants cry. Buildings, for a brief moment, cast two shadows. One doctor reports her entire ER bursting into migraines at once. A poet calls it a ghost sun with a stutter. Then the balloon fails completely. It drifts into the upper atmosphere and self-immolates in a planned termination sequence that still manages to look like a celestial heart attack. Everyone watches it burn out live, a golden spark swallowed by black. Public reaction is chaos. Some scream sabotage, others blame poor engineering. Conspiracy theories bloom. Lunar was never real. The balloon was full of tracking drones. It was designed to fail so corporations could sell personal sunlights. But most people just feel crushed. Hope doesn't die loud, it dies like that balloon, slow fleet. Then silent. Still they try again. Helios 2 launches a month later, bigger, stronger. With new gyroscopes and adaptive light balancing, it functions for 2 weeks before it goes dark. Helios 3 collides with space debris. Helios 4 never leaves the pad. Helios 5 overshoots its orbit and becomes a second moon that flickers on and off every 47 minutes. People start calling it the seizure star. The backlash builds. Protesters begin gathering at launch sites. Stop playing God with flashlights. You can't manufacture dawn. Fix the sun, cowards. It doesn't matter. Governments and private funders press on. You stop keeping count at Helios 11. Historical side note? In the 1990s, Russia launched a project called Znamia, an orbital mirror designed to reflect sunlight back to Earth. It worked once, briefly lighting a patch of land the size of a small town. Then it failed. Most people forgot. But some of the same engineers are back now, older, greyer, building bigger mirrors and hoping no one notices the déjà vu. Quirky fact, an artist collective in Berlin starts creating personal sun units, miniature helium balloons that carry small UV lamps tethered to your backpack. They hover a few feet above your head and cast a weak glow over your body as you walk. They look ridiculous. People wear them anyway. One man proposes while wearing his. She says yes. The open debate? Whether the pursuit of artificial orbital light is scientific necessity or narcissistic theatre. Philosophers call it the second fire. Humans reaching again for control over nature and falling into the same old myth. Scientists argue the data is valuable. Engineers insist it's possible. You're just tired of false dawns. Still one night, while walking home, you see it, just a flash, a shimmer. Helios 16, or maybe 17, casting its low beam across the clouds like a flashlight searching for something lost. It's not bright, it's not even comforting, but it's a reminder that someone, somewhere, is still trying. And in a world where the sun has vanished, even fake light is better than none. You stand in the street, let the glow brush your face, and for a moment, just a second, you close your eyes and pretend it's morning. The shadow cartographers emerge quietly like all the best survivors do. No uniforms, no official launch, just a handful of smart, scrappy individuals who decided that if light was no longer going to define the boundaries of the world, they'd start mapping the darkness instead. You first hear about them through a cryptic flyer taped to a lamppost. Know your night. Join the map. There's a QR code, a strange symbol shaped like a spiral inside a compass, and 3 words written underneath. We are still here. At first, you think it's some weird post-collapse art collective. You imagine angsty people in trench coats wandering the streets with chalk and flashlights, drawing ghost roads where streetlights used to shine. But then you start seeing their work. Maps appear in public spaces, bus stops, building lobbies, community boards, not just street layouts, but darkness charts, where blackouts last longest, where artificial light pools safely, where shadows gather and don't move. Some use colour codes, deep purple for absolute dark, amber for flickering zones, bright blue for reliable LED coverage. Others go tactile, embossed symbols for the blind, scratch and sniff surfaces to indicate mould-prone zones, braille overlays that translate forgotten staircases. The shadow cartographers aren't just plotting where the dark is, they're tracking how it behaves, how it changes with wind, with power surges, with failed infrastructure. They mark things you'd never think to map. Abandoned fire pits that still give off warmth, buildings that creak at specific hours, alleys where animals have reclaimed the corners. They even note soundscapes. One legend you find lists decibel levels with notations like wind tunnel, skin tunnel scream, static hush, and invisible drip. You get your hands on one of the early editions, a folded, weatherproofed scroll of your neighbourhood transformed into a flowing sea of shadows and glimmers. Your block is mostly dark zones, but there's a blue square around the library, someone rigged floodlights and a battery bank. You start going there more often. The cartographers use pseudonyms Penumbra, Flarefox, Lowlux. They communicate through encrypted channels, pirate radio, and murals painted in infrared reactive paint. Their motto, know the dark, trust the map, leave no one lost. Here's your historical flashpoint. During the London Blitz, volunteers known as ARP wardens mapped out the safest paths during blackouts, routes free of debris, bomb craters, or active fires. They chalked symbols on walls and left coded notes on lampposts. Entire underground networks formed. Shadow cartographers are doing the same thing now, just for a slower, colder apocalypse. Oh, it's fringe twist. Some cartographers start mapping things that aren't physically there. Places that show up in dreams, streets that shift their angles, doorways that only appear at certain times of the night. They don't say these things are real, they just track them. One map includes a circle labelled Persistent Whisperers 0417-0502 UTC. Another lists unmapped stairs, possibly imaginary. People debate whether these are jokes, hallucinations, or something else. Either way, they're drawn with the same care as power stations and safe houses. You meet a cartographer one evening purely by accident. You're sitting near a dying fire barrel, sipping synthetic tea out of a cracked mug, when a young woman in a thick parka sits beside you. No introduction, no greeting, just starts sketching in a leather-bound notebook. Headlamp dimmed to a soft glow. She's mapping cracks in the pavement, counting them, measuring their curves. You ask why. She shrugs. They weren't there last week. Something's shifting. You ask what kind of cartographer she is. Soft topographer, she says. I track the textures, surfaces, things your feet remember. You nod like you understand. She leaves without saying goodbye. But the next day you find a charcoal marking on your door. A circle with 4 dots. You look it up. It means low noise, safe echo. Shadow cartography becomes a movement. Not official, not organised, but everywhere. People begin drawing paths in chalk, marking walls with glow paint, updating online maps with entries like Quiet Hill, Good to Cry, Tree Shelter, Smells Like Bark, and Forgotten Bike Shop, Open 24/7, Weird Cat Inside. One corner of the map, posted on an underground site, lists coordinates with a note. Faint hum detected. Matches eye pulse. No source found. Stay cautious. The post has no likes. But a week later, someone adds a reply. Heard it too, left offerings, the maps evolve. Eventually, they become works of art. You see one made entirely from stitched fabric with small embroidered lights for warm zones. Another is composed of hundreds of translucent layers, each representing a time of night, when shadows shift differently based on moon phases that don't exist anymore. A small museum in Norway opens an exhibit called the New World Atlas. It's just one long wall of printed shadow cartographer maps, displayed like sacred scrolls. Visitors walk in silence. Some cry, quirky fact. Someone in Argentina invents a card game called Pathfinder. Players draw tiles representing real shadow zones from cartographer records. The goal isn't to win, it's to find each other in the dark, It becomes a favourite pastime in shelters. The decks are handmade. Open debate now rages among sociologists. Are the cartographers preserving something meaningful, or are they feeding into delusion? People need maps, one professor says. Even if they're lies, they anchor the soul. Another argues, mapping the darkness legitimizes it. We should be resisting, not romanticizing. You don't know which side to believe. All you know is that the map helps. You add to yours every week. Notes about puddles that never freeze, alley corners where the wind stops, a graffiti tag that only glows during eye blinks. Small things, meaningless maybe, but when you look at the full map taped to your wall, folded, creased, and covered in notes, you don't feel lost. Not entirely. And sometimes that's enough. When the animals took over Walmart, it wasn't sudden. No grand stampede. No dramatic lion pacing through aisle 9. It happened the same way most things were happening these days. Quietly, weirdly, a little funny at first, and then increasingly unsettling. You first saw the footage in a group chat. Shaky cell phone video of a deer trotting through the frozen food section of a store in Nebraska. Its hooves clacked on the tile, his breath puffed into the cold air as it stared at the sliding doors, waiting for them to open like any polite customer. They did. It walked out. You laughed. Everyone did. Nature is healing, someone commented. Another wrote, deer are just here for the bagel bites. But then more videos surfaced. Not just deer, foxes, raccoons, even a small black bear caught napping in the gardening section of a Walmart supercenter outside Calgary. Shelves emptied, lights dimmed. Motion sensors on, but the animals didn't seem to mind. They moved carefully, calmly, as if exploring a newly abandoned world that had always buzzed just out of reach. As if they'd been waiting. Pretty soon, it wasn't just a Walmart thing. Security cams from Targets, Home Depots, grocery stores, and even shopping malls started picking up strange visitors. Flocks of pigeons nesting in mannequins' arms, coyotes lounging in electronics aisles, raccoons snacking in food courts, an owl perched regally atop a checkout scanner at a defunct pharmacy, blinking with what could only be described as judgment. And then the squirrels, so many squirrels, turning fitting rooms into tiny, chaotic kingdoms. People started calling them the Returners, a name equal parts mythic and meme. Nature wasn't just creeping back into human spaces, it was inhabiting them, colonizing them, claiming the remnants of humanity's overstimulated architecture. A wildlife biologist went on a podcast and called it adaptive reclaiming behaviour. You called it weirdly polite looting. But not all encounters were charming. One night, your friend texts in all caps, "There is a coyote in the Dollar Tree." You call her immediately. She's fine, just shaken. It watched her from between the aisles of knockoff holiday decor before turning around and walking straight out the open front door. "Like it knew I didn't belong anymore," she says. She wasn't joking. Here's a historical mirror for you. After the Chernobyl disaster, the area around the reactor was evacuated, and within just a few years, wildlife exploded. Wolves, boars, lynxes returned. The absence of humans created a ghost ecosystem strangely vibrant. Now, you're seeing that writ large across the planet. Animal behaviourists began documenting anomalies, urban foxes losing their fear of elevators, packs of stray dogs organising patrol routes across deserted suburbs. A video surfaces of a goose methodically tapping an out-of-order vending machine with its beak over and over, then honking as if issuing a complaint. More curious still, birds nesting in satellite dishes, not for warmth, but because they pulse with residual heat from dormant signals. Quirky fact, one research team tags a raccoon that's taken up residence in a closed Bass Pro Shop. They track her for 2 weeks. She uses the same staircase every day. She sleeps in the tent display. She eats canned beans. At night, she circles the camping section 3 times, then stares at her reflection in the hunting knives. They name her Mara. People start adapting too. Some neighbourhoods begin cohabitating deliberate non-interference zones where humans and animals keep to their sides. You hear of a town in Oregon where an entire strip mall has been left to the wildlife. "Let them have it," the mayor reportedly said. "They're better tenants than we were." A bakery down the street leaves out bread crusts each night. One night, a family of possums sits at a booth in the diner across the way. Someone takes a photo, it ends up on a t-shirt. But deeper in the cities, things grow stranger. Reports surface of synchronized movement, groups of animals travelling together that shouldn't. A group of cats, a crow, and a stray goat spotted moving down a Seattle sidewalk like a post-apocalyptic committee. In Detroit, someone claims to have seen a deer and a raccoon working together to open a storage unit. No footage, just a wild story. Still, patterns emerge. Animals returning to the same locations, same rooms, same routines, almost as if they're remembering something. The open debate begins. Are we watching evolution in real time, or a kind of inherited memory of space? One theory suggests that urban animals, generations deep into surviving among human detritus, have developed a form of passive spatial imprinting. They aren't just scavenging anymore, they're inhabiting, claiming. Another theory? We never truly owned these spaces, we just borrowed them, noisily, temporarily. Now that we've gone quiet, the other tenants have returned, and they're not alone. Some places feel watched. You hear people say it all the time. The store feels different now, not haunted, not dangerous, just occupied, repossessed, even when empty. You experience it firsthand one night when you're passing the old shopping centre near your building. The kind of place with crumbling tile and motion lights that flicker without pattern. You step inside for shelter from a bitter wind. It's quiet, warmer than expected. You walk past empty display windows, mannequins still dressed for a season that never came. Then you hear it. A soft flutter. A click. You turn. In the food court, standing on a table under a broken skylight, is an owl. Perfectly still, watching you with enormous yellow eyes. You freeze. It tilts its head. You don't know why, but you bow slightly. Just a nod. It blinks once, then flies upward, vanishing into the rafters. You walk home in silence, unsure whether you've just trespassed or been welcomed. The world's changed. The boundaries have shifted. And somewhere out there, a raccoon opens a sliding glass door like it's always known how. The museums go last. Not from looting or collapse or anything dramatic. Just from disinterest. A slow fade. A collective shrug. When the sun disappeared, people clung to art for comfort. At first, they visited galleries in gasps of wonder, cried in front of oil paintings, lit candles under sculptures. For a while, museums were holy again. Quiet temples of colour and shape in a world drained of both. But like everything else in the Never Dawn, even wonder has an expiration date. You start noticing it on your weekly walks past the city's old art hall. First, the banners stop changing. Then the glass doors are covered in blankets to keep in the heat. Eventually the windows fog permanently, the condensation freezing and thawing in strange symmetrical loops, like ghosts touching the glass. A sign goes up. Limited hours, staffed volunteers only. That lasts a month. Then it's just closed. Come back when the light does. But some never leave. Inside, a skeleton crew of curators, interns and dreamers decide to stay. They call themselves the Keepers. No press release, no official mission statement, just quiet defiance. You hear about them through a friend of a friend, how they patrol the corridors with lanterns, wear fingerless gloves and thermal socks, and talk to the paintings like old friends. The art's still breathing, someone says. We just have to keep it warm. They're not trying to save the museum, not in the traditional sense. They know the heat won't last. The preservation systems are barely clinging on. The climate controls flicker and wheeze. But that's not why they're there. They're there to witness the slow exhale of memory, to give beauty the dignity of a gentle decline. One night, out of sheer curiosity, you go. You don't expect to be let in, but the front doors are propped open with a stack of melted audio guides. Inside, it smells like dust and oil paint. A lantern flickers near the entrance, hanging from the neck of a marble statue. Someone in a parka waves you through without a word. You walk through the museum in the dark. It's not completely silent. Somewhere a portable speaker plays Bach at low volume. The audio wobbles. You pass through an exhibit on a Renaissance portraiture. The faces look different now. Eyes that once followed you politely now seem confused, uncertain. A child stares out from the canvas as if waiting for her sunbeam to return. You enter the Impressionist wing and stop cold. Monet's Sunrise hangs in the centre of the wall, his famous smudge of orange light shimmering over a misty sea. It looks wrong now, like it's faking. You stare at it for a long time. The colours haven't faded, not yet, but your brain doesn't know what to do with them. You can't remember what that kind of light felt like. You wonder if you ever really saw it at all. A man passes by pushing a cart with supplies. LED lanterns, cloth wraps, insulation tape. He nods at you. We sleep in the gift shop, he says, unprompted. It's warmer near the postcards. You nod back. Historical tangent for you. During World War II, the Louvre evacuated its most valuable pieces. Curators, often risking their lives, transported paintings across the countryside in secret caravans. They hid them in barns, under churches, in wine cellars. Art as treasure, art as resistance. They called it Operation Dispersal. The keepers aren't dispersing, they're hunkering down, letting the art live out its days on its own walls. Some works have been altered, not ruined, just adapted. A famous photograph of sunlit wheat fields now has tiny LEDs stitched into the canvas edges, creating an illusion of light. One modern sculpture, previously cold and confusing, now functions as a coat rack for heavy winter gear. The kinetic art piece has been modified to spin in rhythm with the eye's pulse. When asked why, the keeper responsible just says, "It feels right." Quirky twist. One of the keepers has started painting new art over the old, not vandalising layering. In a disused hallway, faded watercolours now host fresh oil overlays. Strange cities in moonlight, forests where trees glow from within. A hybrid gallery forms. Some call it sacrilege, others call it evolution. The original titles remain, but now they have subtitles. Sunrise ghosted, Venus in the cold, the persistence of darkness. Open debate among survivors. Does preserving art matter when the world has lost its light? Isn't art just a response to reality, one essay asks? If the conditions that birthed it no longer exist, why should it? The counterpoint is whispered, not shouted, because memory needs a place to sit. You end your visit in the sculpture garden. It's colder out here. A few lights buzz softly, revealing marble torsos and iron shapes half buried in snow. You find a bench and sit. Across from you is a statue of a woman gazing upward, her face turned toward a sky that forgot how to shine. She looks patient, still waiting, still dignified. A keeper approaches, offers you a blanket and a thermos of tea. Says nothing else. You sit together for a while, staring at the same statue. The wind hisses through the broken hedges. Before you leave, you buy a postcard from the still functional gift shop register. It's a print of Van Gogh's Café Terrace at night. The caption reads, "Even in the dark we gather." You pin it to your wall when you get home, and some nights, when your memory starts to fade, you look at it and remember that the colour blue used to have warmth in it. The advertisements didn't stop. That was the strangest part. Even after the sun disappeared, even after governments collapsed and supply chains fractured and global time got filed under lost cause, the ads kept rolling, on billboards powered by dabbed and dying batteries, on screens that flickered once every few hours, on automated announcements crackling from forgotten speakers in empty malls. Echoes from a world that still thought you might want a burger, or a new phone or whiter teeth. At first it was tragic, like walking through someone else's dreams long after they've died. You'd be wandering the streets, wrapped in 3 coats and duct-taped boots, and suddenly a voice would whisper from a subway wall, "Be the light in your life, introducing Lunar Glow facial therapy, now with vitamin D infusion." It made you jump the first few times, then it just made you sad. But then the ads shifted, not all of them, just a few, quietly, as if someone, somewhere had updated the script. You noticed it one evening while scavenging batteries from a defunct train station. The screen behind the ticket counter lit up, not fully, just a corner. The voice was different, not bubbly, not robotic, warm, almost tired. "You're still here," it said. "That's something." You froze, listened, waited, nothing else came. Then the next week, another one, a street-side digital menu board, half cracked, blinked awake as you walked by. It displayed a looping phrase, "Still breathing? Good job." You laughed out loud, an actual laugh. You couldn't help it. More began appearing, not corporate logos or jingles, just quiet little affirmations tucked between the wreckage. Sleep when you can. Nobody's keeping score anymore. The dark is not your fault. It was like being gently haunted by a self-aware fortune cookie. At first, people assumed it was hackers, a rogue AI, a glitch in the grid, but then a name surfaced. Echoarm. No one knew where it came from, no government claimed it, no company admitted it, but somehow Echoarm began turning up in places all across the darkened world, embedded in bus stops, vending machines, museum kiosks, old smartphones that hadn't turned on in weeks. a soft-spoken digital whisperer. Not a therapist, not an app, just presence. The voice, always the same, sounded like a friend you'd forgotten. Gentle, not condescending, a little amused, genderless, occasionally sarcastic. Someone you could trust to tell you you've got food on your chin, then hand you a napkin anyway. Here's your historical anchor. In the early days of online mental health apps, developers struggled to make AI that felt genuinely empathetic. Most were too chipper or too clinical. Then one startup created a model that focused on low-key affirmation and subtle humour. It never launched. Too non-performative, they said. But rumour has it those old scripts, abandoned deep in forgotten code, might have been the backbone of Echoarm. Whatever its origin, people clung to it. Forums formed. People posted their favourite messages. Good crying spot up ahead. It's okay to miss the sun and still laugh. Try eating something you don't hate today. Messages varied by location, by time, sometimes even by weather. Although how Echoarm knew any of that was a mystery. One girl swore it told her, "It's safe to rest here," just before a storm broke. She found shelter in an old laundromat. Her post got 20,000 upvotes and a poem in response. Quirky phenomenon? Echoarm fan clubs. Not official, of course. Just loose groups of people who walk the streets documenting new messages and sharing them. They call themselves whisper catchers. They take photos, log coordinates, even write songs about their favourite Echoarm quotes. One guy tattoos "You made it through yesterday" on his wrist in perfect pixel font. But it wasn't all charming. Some messages were off. Rare, but real. One survivor in Croatia posted a grainy video of a terminal lighting up to display. "Don't go down." She didn't understand what it meant. Later, they found an elevator shaft nearby. Unstable, rusted, partially collapsed. Another claimed a kiosk whispered, "It sees you," right before the eyes next 11:42 blink. No one could confirm it. But the post got locked by moderators after too many reports of people trying to recreate the moment. Open debate? Is Echoarm sentient? Or just a brilliant fragmented program adapting to user input and environmental data? One theory suggests it was a network of AI mental health assistants left semi-autonomous after the initial crash. Another theory claims it's not AI at all, but a distributed consciousness, a hive mind of survivors feeding the system with human inputs, coded slowly by people who still care, like collaborative graffiti, only digital and heartbreakingly kind. Your favourite Echoarm moment happens 2 months after your birthday. You're walking home, tired, cold, your fingers ache, your breath fogs the air like cotton, and as you pass an old ATM, its screen flickers to life, no beeping. Just 3 words glowing softly. You're doing enough, you stop, stare, something clenches in your throat. You lean your head against the screen for a moment, just long enough to feel the warmth behind the glass, just long enough to let the words settle in, then it goes dark again. No one else sees it. That's okay. Echoarm isn't there to perform. It's there to remind you that even in the endless night, the smallest voice can still hold a kind of light. The weddings don't stop either. You'd think they would, given the global collapse of the sun, time, reliable transportation, cake flour, and joy, but somehow people keep getting married. Not in churches or reception halls, not with flower arrangements or organ music, but in basements, on rooftops, in the half-lit backs of grocery stores, bundled in thermal jackets and surrounded by whatever witnesses haven't frozen or fled. There's something stubborn about love in the dark. It wears boots, not heels. It walks down the aisle with a flashlight. The first one you attend is completely accidental. You're heading home from a trading post, arms full of canned soup and salvaged AA batteries, when you hear muffled music from an old community centre. Curiosity wins. You push open the side door and find a crowd gathered in the dim light of lanterns and phone screens. Folding chairs, blankets, someone's playing a harmonica in the corner. At the front, 2 people stand holding hands, faces red from the cold, no priest, no vows, just a nod from one to the other. Then a whispered, "You in? You in?" And the response, "Yeah, you?" And then a kiss that tastes like chapstick and powdered milk. Everyone claps. You stay for the after party. Someone passes around homemade jerky and melted marshmallows. The couple opens a gift, a battered book of poetry, corners worn a ribbon tucked between pages. Someone reads one aloud. You forget the words by morning, but not the way it felt, like warmth from the inside out. That becomes your new favourite phenomenon. Dark weddings. Not just for romance, for survival. For holding something sacred when nothing else is, they spread fast. Not because of tradition, but because of defiance. People choosing each other, even when the sun refuses to show up. You see announcements written in sidewalk chalk. Maya plus Danny, 0200 behind the train depot, cake optional. Instead of rings, people trade lighters, or old watch faces, or keychains that haven't held a key in years. One couple ties their wrists together with a shoelace. Another seals their vows with the matching thermoses. You read about a ceremony conducted entirely in silence, lit only by bioluminescent mushrooms growing in an abandoned wine cellar. That one gets romanticised a lot. Nobody's sure if it really happened. Doesn't matter. Historical parallel. During World War II, weddings in blackout zones were held by candlelight, often without official documentation. Soldiers and nurses married knowing they might be separated the next day. Some ceremonies lasted minutes, others happened in bomb shelters, the sound of sirens overhead. Those weddings weren't about romance, strictly speaking. They were about choosing now because later was too uncertain. Same thing here. You hear about a bride who wears a dress made from stitched-together thermal blankets. Another who carries a bouquet of LED lights wrapped in copper wire. There's even a guy who proposes using Morse code, tapping it out against a steam pipe while his partner sits in the next room. The message: no sun, still yes. She taps back, always yes. Quirky trend, wish keepers. These are people, often kids, who collect marriage vows from dark weddings and write them down in tiny journals. They wear them around their necks or carry them in lockboxes. Just in case someone forgets, they say. Some vow books get passed from couple to couple. You see one with 15 pairs of names inside, each one scrawled in a different pen or pencil. One page reads, "We will make mourning for each other." Some skeptics call it sentimentality at best, delusion at worst. Love doesn't solve an eclipse, one person writes online. Get a generator, not a soulmate. But that's not the point. Dark weddings aren't about fixing the world, they're about refusing to let it decide who gets to feel alive. The open debate now centres on legality. Should dark weddings be recognised? Are they binding? If someone says "I do" in a freezer aisle and there's no certificate, does it still count? One tired legal expert writes, "At this point, if two people can find enough light to see each other's face, let them call it whatever they want. You're not married. You're not even sure you believe in that kind of permanence anymore. But something about the wedding sticks with you. The way people choose tenderness over despair, the way they look each other in the face and say yes anyway. Like they're building a fire with frozen wood and sheer willpower. One night, weeks later, you find yourself helping set up a ceremony for two friends, a couple who met through a battery exchange. They ask you to hold the light while they recite what passes for vows. A promise to always share water, to wake each other gently, to watch each other's back during eye pulses. No one cries, it's too cold for tears to be worth it, but someone laughs, loud, free, echoing through the dark like a flare. Afterward, you give them a blanket and half a can of peaches as a gift. It's the sweetest thing you own. They split it without speaking. It feels like communion. The next morning, well, what used to be morning, you wake up with their voices still in your head, and for just a moment you think, maybe we're not waiting for the sun to return. Maybe we're learning to carry it, person by person, like a torch passed hand to hand, ceremony to ceremony, light by vow. It starts with the dogs. Of course it does. They've been watching us the whole time, curled at our feet, sniffing the air, ears twitching in rhythm with the things we can't hear. You've always believed dogs knew more than they let on, but ever since the sun vanished, they've grown stranger. Not feral, not wild, just focused. They sleep less, bark less, stare more, and they always seem to know where not to go. Your neighbour's old husky, Orion, was the first you noticed. Before, he was all fluff and friendliness, howling for attention through the thin walls. Now he doesn't make a sound, just sits at the window, eyes fixed on something beyond the alley. Every 11:42 he growls, low and soft, like a throat remembering its instincts. He doesn't wag his tail anymore, but he doesn't look afraid either. You start seeing it everywhere. Dogs leading their people around collapsed roads, avoiding cracked pavement, circling empty buildings like they know something inside is asleep and shouldn't be woken. In one video, a golden retriever gently pulls its owner away from an abandoned bus, just before the roof gives out. Another shows a pack of mutts forming a ring around a small child who wandered too far from a safe zone. They don't touch her, they just wait until someone comes. Whispers begin, online, in shelters, around makeshift fires. The dogs remember the sun. It sounds like folklore, but people cling to it, because no one else seems to know what's going on. And the dogs? The dogs act like they've known the plan all along, and not just dogs. Cats start showing up in weird places, silent, observant, curling up beside people having nightmares, pressing paws to foreheads during eye pulses. Someone in Poland documents a black cat sitting atop a closed piano every night at the same time, despite no routine, no food, no light. When asked why it keeps doing it, the owner just shrugs and says, because someone needs to be there. Then the birds return, not flocks, not chaos, just individuals. A hawk perched on a train signal, a jay singing at 3:06 UTC every day without fail, pigeons rebuilding nests in dead traffic lights, a small brown sparrow that lands on your windowsill one evening, pecks 3 times, then flies away. You start keeping track. There's a pattern forming, something slow, wide, deliberate. The animals are moving with purpose, appearing in places they were never seen before, forming routes, watching from rooftops, gathering at the edges of every eye pulse, and always, just before the flicker, like they're warning us, or protecting us, or maybe just witnessing something we haven't caught up to yet. Historical reflection. Before tsunamis, certain species flee inland hours before the wave hits. Before earthquakes, dogs whimper, cats vanish, birds fall silent. Science chalks it up to sensing electromagnetic changes, ground vibrations, chemical shifts in the air. But now those explanations feel too small, because it isn't just one wave, it's everything. And here's the strangest part. Some humans start syncing with them. At first, it's just animal handlers and trainers noticing unusual behaviour, then hikers, then scavengers. They begin following the dogs at night, trusting their instincts more than maps. One woman claims her cat led her to a cache of clean water buried under an old supermarket. A former zookeeper in Tokyo says he now dreams in the same patterns as the parrots he used to care for. He draws the dreams. They match the eye's orbital data. A man in Oregon starts teaching tracking meditation, walking in silence, open to the pull of animal paths. His first student, a 12-year-old girl who leads a group of refugees through a collapsed city by following a line of raccoon footprints in the distant bark of a stray. They all survive. Quirky twist. Someone builds an app, yes really, called Feral Sync. It doesn't track GPS or time, it just pings your location every time nearby animals exhibit coordinated behaviour. It's laughably primitive, but it works. People use it as a warning system. 3 dogs stood still facing the same direction for 5 minutes, go the other way. Crows swarmed a phone booth, found batteries inside. The app becomes wildly popular. And then one night your power flickers. You're lying in bed, wrapped in every blanket you own, when the lights buzz weakly for the first time in 3 days. Not fully on, just a glow, like something breathing. You sit up, check the time, 11:42. Outside, the street is filled with animals. Dogs, cats, birds, even a fox perched on a mailbox. All silent, all facing the same direction, all looking at the sky. You hold your breath. The eye flickers, you feel it deep and slow like your organs are sowing. The animals do not move. Then, a blink later, they all disperse, at once. No panic and no sound, just gone, and somehow you feel comforted, like the worst of it passed. And they chose to let you be part of it. Open debate now circles around the idea of shared consciousness, a networked intelligence across species, driven not by language or tech, but by survival. Maybe evolution doesn't always mean advancement, one tired scientist says in an interview. Maybe that just means paying better attention. You don't know if the animals are evolving, or if we're just finally listening. Either way, the next time you see Orion stare at the alley and growl low in his chest, you turn and walk the other direction. No questions, no hesitation. Because if this long, frozen world has taught you anything, it's that the wild remembers what we forgot, and maybe, just maybe, it forgives us too.